I remember when the English translations were just starting to be released. 7 Seas announced all 3 MXTX titles at the same time. Modao, Heavens, and Scumvillain all got their Volume 1 on the same day, but then the rest of the volumes had staggered releases. So, there I was. Volume 1 of Modao is great, and it leaves off right before the Yi City arc. I was looking forward to the next one, but there was some time to kill before it came out. Luckily, MDZS isn't lacking for content, unlike some other MXTX novels. The Donghua was still waiting on Season 3, but I could still rewatch the first 2, so I did, and Season 2 ends right before they walk into Yi City. There was also the Untamed. My friends and I were watching it very slowly. We had been trying and failing to schedule a time to watch it for months. So when we finally found the time, I was so excited. Before then, we had purposely stopped right before episode 37 because it was a good stopping point before the next bingeable arc. You'll never guess what happens in that one. My friend told me I should pick up the manhwa, and I really did like the art style, but my friend showed me the chapter she was reading and... Honestly, seeing Yi City probably pissed me off way more than it should have, but here we are. I did eventually read the manhwa. Did I skip Yi City out of principle? No, of course not. This is a really good arc.
Truly, this system will never understand host.
Anyways, welcome back to my little book club. Today we are going through The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, also known as Modao Zushi, by MXTX, Volume 2. This book is rated 17+, and the content warnings will be linked in the notes.
Assistance will be supplied when necessary.
Without any further ado, I present to you the Yi City arc. Okay, that was a lie. I have a little bit further ado. In the last volume, I was really trying to establish Wei Wuxian and Lan Wenzhi. Zheng Cheng got a little attention too, but just a bit. And I still feel like that was just so much exposition and pinboard fodder, and yet there was still so much I didn't dive into. So we're gonna do some of that now. Let's talk about everyone's favorite throuple. Sworn brothers. That being Lan Zichen, Jing Guanyao, and Nie Mingjue. Nie Mingjue is the oldest. He's stern and harsh, and in The Untamed, he has a mustache. Jing Guanyao is the youngest. He has a huge chip on his shoulder, even after being recognized as an official member of the Jing clan. His mother was a humble courtesan, because Jing Guangshan can't keep it in his pants, and the Jing clan is so snooty. They gave him so much grief about it. Jing Guanyao has massive walls built from polite smiles and cutthroat politics. And then there's Lan Zichen in the middle. In age, of course. Beautiful and kind and optimistic, Lan Zichen holds the trio together, in my opinion. Before he was recognized and given the name Jing Guanyao, he was called Meng Yao. And in The Untamed, there's a scene where Meng Yao is in the cloud recesses for the guest lectures, and he's handing Lan Zichen a box, and there's this super long, lingering shot of their pinky fingers softly caressing each other. It's so good. People are really mean to Meng Yao. The Jing clan does not fuck around with optics. Carp Tower sits at the top of massive golden stairs, and Meng Yao has been kicked down those stairs multiple times. Lan Zichen never cared about Meng Yao's origins. He didn't care about social statuses within the Lanlingjin sect. Meng Yao gained notoriety during the Sunshot campaign against the Wens. We'll get into the details later, but he carried out a successful undercover operation and ended up killing the Wen sect leader. After that, he was named Jing Guanyao. Jing Guanyao and Nie Mingjue have a bit of a tumultuous relationship. Nie Mingjue is super straightforward. He also didn't really care about Meng Yao's origins. To him, it should be merit over everything. There was a time when Nie Mingjue witnessed a bunch of spoiled Jin masters bullying Meng Yao, and he reprimanded them for their ungrateful and spoiled attitudes. But Nie Mingjue didn't know about the undercover operation. He saw Meng Yao with the enemy and thought he and Lan Zichen had been betrayed. And when all was revealed, he still felt like he couldn't fully trust Jing Guanyao. But Lan Zichen was there to mediate. He convinced his 2 closest friends to enter a pact of sworn brotherhood, and things got better. The Nie saber technique is really intense. All of the Nia masters either fall in battle or eventually succumb to qi deviation. Lan Zichen regularly visited Nia Mingjue to play him music. The Lan musical techniques are the best out there. He played Clarity, a song to balance spiritual energy and calm the mind. Eventually, Lan Zichen teaches Jin Guangyao to play the song as well, and they both help out their sworn brother. But Nia Mingjue still died to qi deviation a few years after the siege of the burial mounds, and Lan Zichen and Jin Guangyao could only look after Nia Huaisong in his stead. We'll learn even more about those guys as the story goes on. I just wanted to give y'all a little taste. Let's get back to what Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji are up to. Okay, when we last left off, we were making good progress in the real-time arc. Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian have discovered one arm, 2 legs, and the torso of their mysterious good buddy. We got 1 drunk scene and 3/4 of the juniors. And now, here we are at the gates of Yi City. The arm had led them further into former Wen sect territory. Technically, Yi City isn't a city. The Yi on the sign used to read Yishuan, meaning charitable mortuary. It used to be a place for producing funeral goods. The tiny village outside of Yi City is barely populated. The people there are super skittish and not doing great. Wei Wuxian manages to get a little information from bribes, and Lan Wangji gets a little jealous. The arm is directing them to Yi City, so into the city they go. The vibes in Yi City are absolutely rancid. Everything is abandoned. There's a thick fog everywhere, and it smells of mildew and rot. There's all these creepy, abandoned papier-mâché dolls all over the place. Back in the day, these dolls were produced as funerary goods, but now they're just here for the unfortunate traveler to trip over. Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian have to stick very close together so they don't lose sight of each other. Somewhere in the fog, they can hear footsteps and the sound of a bamboo cane. They follow the sound of the cane for a while before it's replaced with more footsteps. Lan Wangji draws his sword, and the newcomers recognize it. Soon, a bunch of little duckling disciples are calling out for their Hanguanjun. Lan Sijue and Lan Jingyi were out on their assigned night hunt when they ran into Jin Ling and some other juniors on the road, and they all decided to travel together. Among those some other disciples, we find one Ouyang Zizhen, and the final part of our junior quartet. I love Ouyang Zizhen. He's very sweet and an integral part of the quartet. Unfortunately, he's often the junior that gets forgotten by the fandom, but not on my podcast. He's the only son of the sect leader of the Bailing Ouyang clan, which is a small regional sect within Yunmengjiang territory. There's a lot of greetings going around, well, polite bows for Lan Wangji and a couple, "It's you!" finger wagging at Wei Wuxian. I guess Lan Sijue and Lan Jingyi had also been traveling with Little Apple because he seemed unhappy in the cloud recesses. They left him outside Yi City. Probably a good call. This place is dangerous. There must be a maze array around the entire place. The junior disciples say they only recently entered the city, after Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian, but somehow they got ahead of them. And the juniors mentioned they were also following the sound of a bamboo cane. How curious. But let's hold that thought, because a bunch of stuff starts happening all at once. A herd of fierce corpses emerges from the fog, only they're not corpses. Well, some of them are, but others are poor village folk who had been corpse poisoned. Wei Wuxian gets suspicious of the smell in the fog, so he asks to check Sijue's tongue, and sure enough, there are signs of corpse poison. I'll get to what that means in just a second. Wei Wuxian tries to tell Lan Wangji, but it's not Lan Wangji next to him, but the shrouded gravedigger from Yueyang City. Wei Wuxian stops him before he can snatch his spirit pouch. The guy must have followed them after they thwarted him before. Lan Wangji has been rounding up the villagers that were still alive, but came back as soon as Wei Wuxian called. Lan Wangji engages with the gravedigger, and Wei Wuxian leads the juniors away to assess. They go into a creepy old workshop with a creepier, older shopkeeper woman. The whole place is covered in more papier-mâché dolls, but these ones are more grotesque in design. Wei Wuxian, or Senior Mo to the kids, explains what they're dealing with. Corpse poison is a fine powder that, when inhaled, slowly kills the infected person. The longer the poison affects a person, the more corpse-like they become. They lose the ability to speak as their tongues rot. reducing them to moaning. They smell more of rot and decay until that's all they are. And yep, Senior Mo can see it on all of their tongues. The juniors have all inhaled the poison, but don't worry, the poison is not that far along, and Wei Wuxian can prepare a cure. He'll just need some assistance to prepare it. Okay, so in this scene, at one point, Jin Ling acts all huffy and spoiled, so Wei Wuxian calls him young mistress, which really pisses Jin Ling off, but Lan Jingyi loves it. And going forward, Jingyi is definitely going to use the nickname to annoy Jin Ling as much as possible. Wei Wuxian hurdles the kids out of the workshop and into the kitchen. They'll need a clean space to prepare the cure, so they clean out the cobwebs and wipe down all the surfaces. There's a ton of rotten meat lying around, and Jin Ling gets the misfortune of throwing it out. While they're cleaning, Wei Wuxian gets more of the story of how they all ended up here. Each one of the juniors had been traveling, night hunting, when they noticed they were being watched and followed.
Warning for animal harm.
Lan Sijue and Jin Ling both describe finding dead cats outside of every inn they stayed at. Eventually, they decided to try and find whoever was doing this, and the trail led them here to Yi City. Something led all of them here. They ran into each other on the road, and once they compared stories, they decided to travel together. Free of dust, grime, and rotting food, this place almost feels homey. They fill a pot with water, and Wei Wuxian finds some rice for them to work with. They're making rice porridge. Wei Wuxian gives them a lecture about the medicinal applications of glutinous rice. It's an old folk remedy for drawing out poisons. In a pinch, if you scrub a glutinous rice paste into an infected wound, it can draw out the infection. But be warned, it'll probably sting a lot. For the bits of corpse poison they've all inhaled, eating some rice porridge should work just fine. After a while, it's done cooking, and Wei Wuxian instructs everyone to grab a bowl, and we get to learn a little something about our dear protagonist. Wei Wuxian loves spicy food. If given his way, he would drown every meal he ate in chili oil. There's spicy, and then there's whatever the fuck Wei Wuxian is eating. These poor juniors could never be ready, especially those Lan boys whose typical diet consists mainly of plain rice and steamed veggies. Wei Wuxian just brushes them off. Pah, why are they complaining? He has a distinct memory of meeting Lan Wangji and Yi Ling for a meal back when he lived in the burial mounds. And Lan Wangji had ordered all spicy dishes. These kids should strive to be more like their Han Guanjun.
A keen observation from our protagonist. This system wonders what he will discover next.
I feel like robots like you shouldn't be able to roll your eyes like that.
This system has no eyes to roll. Host and this system currently exist in this non-visual media, otherwise known as an audio podcast.
Shut up. Anyways, the kids eat through the tears while Wei Wuxian says the sweating will only help them expel the poison, so bottoms up. Lan Sijue manages to choke it down, and the burn feels almost nostalgic. Let's put that one on the pinboard. After their meal, Wei Wuxian continues his lectures. The old lady is in the room next to them going through the motions of sewing, but the needle isn't even threaded. Wei Wuxian explains that she's a living corpse. The corpse poison has fully infected her. She just happens to still be alive. Other than a heartbeat, she appears just like a corpse. She doesn't blink, and her muscles are all stiffened. Living corpses were used by those unscrupulous few needing an easy-to-control army. Immediately, all the kids are like, oh, it must have been Wei Wuxian, the Yiling patriarch then. And Wei Wuxian's like, no, he wouldn't do that. It was someone else. They leave the old lady alone. Then they hear the sounds of bamboo again. Wei Wuxian peeks out the window and spots a ghost. Aha! The lecture continues. He makes each of the juniors go up to the window and tell the class what they see. If these kids are going to be great cultivators, then they can't be scared of one little ghost. It's a young girl in plain clothes. Her eyes are milky white, and she carries a bamboo cane. They conclude that she was likely blind in life. Her cane makes the exact sound that led them through the fog to each other, so she's probably on their side. When it's Ouyang Zijian's turn, he waxes some poetry about how cute the girl must have been in life, and Wei Wuxian's like, this kid's got potential. They try to ask her questions, but the ghost opens her mouth, revealing she has no tongue. She tries to gesture something, but they don't understand. She stomps in frustration and disappears. But there's always something else, especially here in Yi City. Wei Wuxian and the juniors see another figure in the fog. At first, they think it might be that shrouded gravedigger guy, but they can eventually make out that his face isn't covered. Well, not covered by black smoke. The guy is fighting a crowd of fierce corpses. They watch as he slices through him but gets blasted in the face with a whole lot of corpse poison. They need to rescue the guy. But that area is so dense with corpse poison right now that going out there would be pointless. Lucky for that guy, Wei Wuxian is here. He walks the kids back into the workshop and picks out a couple of the papier-mâché dolls. Wei Wuxian does a ritual called the Final Eyes Summoning. He cuts his thumb and uses the blood to draw eyes on the dolls. He channels some resentful energy into them, animating them. Wei Wuxian pointed to the door. Go bring the living in. Obliterate everything else. Shrill laughter shrieked from the mouths of the paper effigies. A blast of sinister wind rushed past and flung open the 2 doors of the entrance. The 2 paper effigies leapt out, shoulder to shoulder, and dove right into the mob of walking corpses. It was hard to believe that fake humans, so clearly made of paper, could possess such fierce and destructive power. Stepping with their fine embroidered shoes and fluttering their airy sleeves, they slashed off a walking corpse's arm with one sweep and sliced a head in half with another. It was as if the paper sleeves had transformed into sharp blades. That charming laughter echoed incessantly down the long street, rousing the mind yet raising the hair. It wasn't long before a dozen walking corpses had been sliced to mangled pieces by the effigies. It was a complete victory for the paper maids. Obeying the commands they were given, they picked up the weakened escapee and carried him inside before jumping out the door. The door closed automatically behind them, and they quieted down as they stood one on either side, watching the entrance like guardian lions. The clan juniors inside the house were gaping. In the past, they had learned stories of the deviant path from the books and from their seniors. At the time, they couldn't understand. If it was so wicked, why were there so many people who wished to learn it? Why were there so many imitators of the Yilin patriarch? It was only now, after seeing it with their own eyes, that they understood. The deviant path had its own enticing and mysterious ways. And this final eyes summoning was merely the tip of the iceberg. Once most of the youths came around, there was surprisingly no revulsion on their faces. Instead, they were filled with unconcealable excitement. They felt as though they had gained immense insight and a wealth of topics to discuss with their fellow disciples when they returned. Only Jinling still looked upset. Lan Sijue went over to help Wei Wuxian assist the man, but Wei Wuxian said stay back, and be careful not to touch the corpse toxin. You might get poisoned too if it touches on your skin. By the time the paper effigies had carried the man inside, he was already drained of energy, only half conscious. But now he was a little more alert. He coughed a few times but covered his mouth, seeming to be worried he'd infect the others if he expelled corpse toxin. The guy is understandably confused. One second, he's fighting a bunch of corpses, and the next second, he's in a house surrounded by strangers. He can't even see them. Well, Wei Wuxian assumes. The guy has thick white bandages wrapped around his head, covering his eyes. He's blind. Jinling is the most cautious of this guy. Isn't he suspicious? What's he doing here? Also, his sword is covered in cloth, and everyone knows that only suspicious people hide their swords like that. Wei Wuxian does some snooping, peeling back the fabric. The sword is engraved with the name, Shuanghua. All the juniors know that sword. They learned about it. Shuanghua was the famous sword of Zhao Jingchen. We first heard about Zhao Jingchen at the end of Volume 1, very briefly, so here's a quick refresher. Zhao Jingchen first appeared about a year after the siege of the burial mounds. He was a student of the same immortal that taught Wei Wuxian's mother. He traveled around as a wandering cultivator, but he had a lot of friends in the sects. Then, the Chang clan was murdered. Zhao Jingchen investigated and found a suspect, Xu Weiyang. Xu Weiyang was put to trial, but he had backing from Jin Guangshan and was released. Xu Weiyang got revenge by going after Zhao Jingchen's best friend, Song Lan, and Zhao Jingchen then went missing after gifting Song Lan his eyes. And now here he apparently is in Yi City. Zhao Jingchen tells them he's a wandering cultivator and he just happened upon Yi City. The corpses have been chasing him for a long time, and they likely still are. And sure enough, there is quite the army gathering outside. Wei Wuxian does the final eyes summoning again to fight them off. There's actually this really cute moment here. Wei Wuxian cuts his hand on Lan Jingyi's sword, but he's like, Senior Mo, how much blood would it take you to mark every paper effigy? Here, you can use some of mine, and holds up his arm. And then there's a chorus of juniors holding their arms out like, Yes, Senior Mo, please use mine. And Wei Wuxian is touched, but he doesn't need their blood. No, just some blank talisman papers should do. So now that the corpses should be occupied for a while, Wei Wuxian gets to cooking another pot of glutinous rice porridge. Xiao Xingchen inhaled too much poison for the rice to cure him, but it will help. And he's sure to make it extra spicy. While he chokes down the food, Xiao Xingchen gives a little lecture on the dangers of the final eyes summoning and the deviant path. Quote, Cultivators who walk this path can easily find themselves facing mutiny from subordinate malicious ghosts and belligerent spirits. Not even the founding father of this path, the Yiling patriarch Wei Wuxian, could escape that fate. This is just my personal suggestion, but if my lord is not his match, then do be more careful in the future. Best not to use that magic unless absolutely necessary. Try cultivating another path. The effigies take out all the corpses in the immediate area, and the corpse poison has been slowly diffusing. It's almost safe to venture out, but of course, things can never be that easy. Just then, a fierce corpse crashes through the ceiling, and this one is different from the others. It's wearing black cultivator robes and wielding a sword. Wei Wuxian concludes that it must be more powerful and kept more of its skills from life, just like Wen Ning. Someone must be controlling it to attack them now, but if it takes commands, there should be no reason Wei Wuxian can't take over. He pulls out his flute and plays a command. The fierce cultivator corpse freezes. Success! And Wei Wuxian plays another command. Call it a contingency plan. I'll come back to that in a second. Now, what the fuck is going on here? The corpse's eyes look milky white and his tongue is cut out, blind and mute, just like the young ghost girl from earlier. Wei Wuxian examines the corpse more. He has a sword wound in the center of his chest. This is likely what killed him to begin with. What's more, he has the same nails in his temple that Wei Wuxian found on Wen Ning. Is the person in charge of this guy the same person who held Wen Ning for all those years? It seems likely. Wei Wuxian asks the juniors if anyone is proficient in playing inquiry. Lan Sijue steps up. Lan Jingyi tells him that Han Guanjun called Sijue's skills at Guqian language acceptable, so that's good enough for Wei Wuxian. Oh yeah, I should also mention during that scuffle, Xiao Xingchen used too much energy and passed out from the poison in his system. He's lying as comfortably as he can on the ground. First question, ask who he is, Wei Wuxian said. Lan Sijue thought for a moment, then mouthed the incantation to himself before daring to pluck out the first verse. A good moment later, the strings vibrated, and two notes blasted forth like bedrock splitting. Lan Sijue's eyes widened. Lan Jingyi urged, What did he say? Song Lan, Lan Sijue said. The best friend and fellow cultivator of Xiao Xingchen, Song Lan? Everyone turned to look at the unconscious Xiao Xingchen on the ground. Lan Sijue murmured, I wonder if he knows this is Song Lan. Jing Ling also hushed his voice. Probably not. He's blind, and Song Lan is mute. Not to mention, he's become a mindless fierce corpse, so best if he doesn't. Wei Wuxian said. Second question. Ask who killed him. Lan Sijue played a verse seriously. This time, the silence lasted 3 times longer than before. Just when they thought Song Lan's soul wasn't willing to answer the question, the strings trembled and 3 notes sounded with profound pain. Impossible, Lan Sijue blurted. What did he say? Wei Wuxian asked. Lan Sijue was incredulous. He said, Xiao Xingchen. The one who killed Song Lan was Xiao Xingchen? They had only asked 2 questions. Who could have imagined each answer would be more shocking than the last? Jinling was dubious. You played it wrong, right? Lan Sijue replied. Who art thou and who killed thee are the easiest and most frequently asked questions during a session of inquiry. Though the first and second verses everyone who studies inquiry learns, I've practiced them at least 1,000 times, and I checked repeatedly before playing them. I most certainly did not make a mistake. Well, either your inquiry was played wrong or you've misinterpreted the Guqian language. Jinling determined, adamant. Lan Sijue shook his head. If the notes were not wrong, misinterpretation is even more impossible. Xiao Xingchen is an uncommon phrase or name. rarely heard from invited spirits. If he had answered with a different name and I had misinterpreted it, there's no way it would just so happen to be this name. Lan Jingyi mumbled. Song Lan went to find the missing Xiaoxing Chen, but Xiaoxing Chen killed him? Why would he kill his best friend? He doesn't seem like the type to do that. Don't worry about that for now, Wei Wuxian said. Sidgway, ask the third question. Who is controlling him? Lan Sidgway's face was serious, and he did not dare breathe too hard as he played the third verse. Many eyes were glued to the strings, waiting for Song Lan's answer. Then they heard Lan Sidgway interpret the response, one word at a time. The one behind you. Everyone's head shot up. Xiaoxing Chen, who had been lying on the ground unconscious, was now sitting up with one hand propping up his cheek as he smiled at them. He raised his black-gloved left hand and snapped his fingers. Dun dun dun! The guy's demeanor does a complete 180. Inquiry gave him away. Song Lan started rampaging again. The guy disguised as Xiaoxing Chen tells Wei Wuxian that he has something he wants to discuss with him, and tells him to send the kids away. He was the one to lure all the juniors to Yi City, and now they are essentially hostages. Well, there was another reason these kids were all led here, but I'll put that on the pinboard. Wei Wuxian stays calm and tells them to go out and wait for him. He puts Lan Sidgway in charge. Lan Sidgway promises to be careful. Senior Mo really reminds them of Hang Guanjun sometimes. He feels nostalgic again. The kids leave, and so does Song Lan. Well, Song Lan is forced out. Wei Wuxian's contingency plan. Earlier, the second command he gave was to summon Wen Ning. His ever-loyal ghost general is here for the assist. He tells Wen Ning to keep Song Lan away from the juniors. And now it's just the two left. The guy calls him out as the Yiling Patriarch. He recognized the skill in the final eye summoning. That skill could only be the founder. But Wei Wuxian isn't the only one being called out here. This guy could only be Xue Yang. With everything out in the open, Xue Yang removes the bandages and exposes his face. He also pulls out a pill, corpse poison antidote. Xue Yang is so snarky. He's like, this pill is way more effective than that terrifying porridge you fed me. And it's sweet, too. Okay, let me try and summarize Xue Yang's motives here. Basically, he wants Wei Wuxian's help in fixing a shattered soul. He keeps the shards in a spirit sealing pouch. Wei Wuxian's like, that's crazy. It was impossible to fix a shattered soul. You can't just glue them back together. Besides, Xue Yang was the one who reforged the Yin Tiger Tally. If demonic cultivation could fix the soul, then he should be able to do it himself. But it seems like Xue Yang has been trying for a long time with no results, so he thinks that Wei Wuxian, the founder, will be able to do something he can't. Xue Yang is taking advantage of Mo Zhanyu's weak body. If he can get the better of Wei Wuxian, then he can capture him and force him to work on the soul for as long as it takes. It's not like anyone is looking for Wei Wuxian. He's supposed to be dead after all. But there is somebody looking out for Wei Wuxian. And yep, right on cue, Lan Wenzhi comes swooping in at the rescue. Xue Yang thought he had Lan Wenzhi fully occupied with 300 corpses to deal with. But you should never underestimate the power of love. So, Lan Wenzhi is handling Xue Yang, and Wen Ning is handling Song Lan. Wei Wuxian isn't needed here. He spots Lan Jingyi waving from a dark building nearby. He'll go check on the kids. I do want to note that Xue Yang is fighting with his own spirit sword, and not Xiaoxing Chen's stolen one. At some point, Lan Wenzhi manages to get Shuanghua away from him, and this makes Xue Yang really mad. So he starts summoning corpses, but not targeting Lan Wenzhi. The warehouse with Wei Wuxian and the juniors is suddenly surrounded. I feel like so far in Volume 2, we've gotten to see a lot more of Wei Wuxian's abilities, which is great. But it's time for Lan Wenzhi to show off a bit. Lan Wenzhi moves Bichen to his left hand,
ambidextrous king,
and pulls his Gutian out with his right. Okay, hold on, sorry. Side note, have y'all seen a Gutian? Like, they're pretty big and long, and they're made of wood, so they've got some weight to them. Like, normally videos I've seen and stuff, they have the instrument sitting on a table to play it. Makes sense. And canonically, Lan Wenzhi is really strong, so I don't think it's an issue. It just seems so unwieldy. Like, just try and imagine standing and holding an electric keyboard. They seem to be about the same size. Now, imagine playing it in that position. Now, imagine adding a fun little sword fight into the mix. In the MDZS donghua, they do such a good job animating Lan Wangji with his gutian. He looks so graceful and elegant, swinging his instrument around. It totally makes you forget how much of a nightmare that would be for any of us mortals to attempt. And he's actually holding it. In the Untamed, his gutian is usually floating on spiritual energy, which is also cool. Hell yeah, use magic. It makes sense. Also, it saves us from all watching Yibo juggle some styrofoam monstrosity. Honestly, I would probably watch that. Yibo is disgustingly handsome, so I would watch him do a lot of things. Except the blackface. Oop. Anyways, what am I even talking about? Let's get back to this story. Lan Wangji starts dual wielding. He's using a sword seal to direct Bichen and Xue Yang, and he's using musical cultivation to take the corpses down in waves. Like, he plays a chord imbued with spiritual energy, and it turns the sound wave into a tangible cutting force.
In the Untamed, this technique is named chord assassination.
I took a physics of sound class in college, and I thought about Lan Wangji the whole time. And I'm just sitting here gushing about Lan Wangji being cool. But don't worry, so are the juniors. For some flavor, quote, Jin Ling blurted out, "Awesome." He had seen Jiang Cheng and Jin Guangyao cut down Yao beasts during night hunts, and believed his two uncles were the strongest of all the distinguished cultivators in the world. He had always been more scared than reverent of Lan Wangji, afraid of his silencing spell and cold temper. But at this moment, he couldn't help but feel a great admiration for the man's bearing. Lan Jingyi was pleased. Of course Hang Guanjun is awesome. He just doesn't like to flaunt it everywhere. He's super low profile, am I right? The "am I right" was directed at Wei Wuxian, who was perplexed. Why ask me? What's that got to do with me? Lan Jingyi grew upset. You don't think Han Guanjun is awesome? Wei Wuxian stroked his chin. Yes. Awesome, of course. Super amazing. The most formidable. So they watch for a second, and then Wei Wuxian's like, let's dip. They can hear the ghost girl's bamboo cane again. Thinking back, the ghost probably disappeared earlier to avoid being seen by Xue Yang. They followed her. Oh my god. Okay, so here's another super iconic junior moment. Wei Wuxian's like, let's leave. And Lan Jingyi's like, what? We're just gonna leave? Wei Wuxian knows Lan Wangji can handle this, so he sees no problem with it. He even calls out to Lan Wangji like, we'll leave this to you, Lan Zhan. And Lan Zhan doesn't even respond. But that's not what the juniors meant. Jingyi has the whole script. He's supposed to say, I'm worried about you, I'm staying. And then Lan Wangji would say, leave. And Wei Wuxian could cry back, no, if we have to leave, then we'll leave together. Tian and Jun would love this. So anyways, they follow the bamboo sounds. It leads them to the titular charitable mortuary. Wei Wuxian does another mini lecture. Curiously, the doorways of the mortuary have really high thresholds. This is something that you'd typically see at a traditional temple. But this is a mortuary, not a temple, so why here? Well, that's because they would house the corpses here before burial. If any of them gathered enough resentment to become fierce, then the tall thresholds could stop them from leaving the building, or at the very least, trip them up so people could get away. Pretty ingenious. The ghost girl leads them to a specific coffin. Wei Wuxian opens it, revealing the corpse of an elegant young man with bandages wrapped around his eyes. The real Zhao Jingchen. The ghost girl does a lot of gesturing. She clearly wants to tell them the story, but how to do it? It would definitely be too complicated for inquiry. It would be too hard to guess the specific questions she wanted them to ask. So Wei Wuxian will use empathy. Empathy is a technique wherein a person allows a resentful spirit to possess their body. The spirit can then share memories with them. But more than that, they will share every emotion and physical sensation as well. It's pretty cool. And MXTX uses empathy a few times throughout MDZS to deliver backstories and exposition. Now, obviously, this technique can also be quite dangerous. If the spirit wanted to, it could do a lot of harm once the possession began. But Wei Wuxian's not too worried. He just asks Jin Ling to supervise him. Jin Ling's like, no, that's too much pressure, I don't want to. And Lan Sijue volunteers, but Wei Wuxian needs Jin Ling on board because he's his uncle's nephew and he has the Jiang clan's signature clarity bell hanging from his belt. If it seems like something is going too far, then they only need to ring the bell and it will pull Wei Wuxian back out. I will note that Wei Wuxian notices that the specific bell that Jinling carries used to belong to Jian Yanli. It's so easy for Wei Wuxian to see his sister in her son. The ghost's name is Ah Qing. She's an orphan, and while her ghost was blind, in life she wasn't. But that didn't stop Ah Qing from acting like it. She was born with milky white eyes, so if she used a cane and stumbled around a bit, it was easy to convince people that she was blind. She used it to her advantage. A street kid's gotta eat. She would wander around marketplaces. When she found someone with nice enough robes, she'd bump into them. And then it's all, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm blind. I couldn't see you." And then she'd scurry away with their money pouch. People always lowered their guard against a little blind girl. She was doing this when she first met Xiaoxing Chen. He was really blind, but he knew when she took his money pouch. And then he defended her when an earlier mark came stomping back. Xiaoxing Chen was really kind. He gave her advice for navigating busy streets and was even willing to let her keep his money pouch. Ah Qing convinced him to let her travel with him. She followed while Xiaoxing Chen wandered from place to place, hunting whatever random ghouls he came across. Wei Wuxian notes that Xu Yang actually did a remarkable job impersonating him. They are wandering the same road Wei Wuxian and Lan Wenzhi took to Yi City when Ah Qing spots a dark-clad figure lying in the grass. It seems suspicious, so she just pretends not to see him. She's playing a blind girl, after all, but Xiaoxing Chen smells blood and goes to investigate. Ah Qing doesn't know his name yet, but Xu Yang is lying there injured and unconscious. She's so suspicious of him right from the beginning, and Wei Wuxian is proud. He has the powers of retrospect here. This injury for sympathy trick is the same one he used on Wei Wuxian and the juniors. Xiaoxing Chen is too righteous for his own good, and Ah Qing has no reason to suggest they leave the man to die other than her gut. He loads the injured man onto his back and carries him to the next town, Yi City. In Ah Qing's memories, Xiaoxing Chen's eyes are still bleeding, and Xu Yang looks quite a bit younger, so Wei Wuxian concludes that all of this must have been right after Xiaoxing Chen gifted Song Lan his eyes, and Xu Yang had escaped with Jin Guangshan. Xiaoxing Chen was said to be missing right around this time. Wei Wuxian watches them set up in the very mortuary Xiaoxing Chen's coffin rests in. Ah Qing gathers various foodstuffs and cooking supplies around the place, while Xiaoxing Chen feeds Xu Yang medicinal pills and goes about washing the blood off his face. Okay, so I'm really trying to get the nuance here. So Xu Yang wakes up and he immediately recognizes Xiaoxing Chen, of course, but Xiaoxing Chen is blind, and because Xu Yang was injured and just woke up, his voice is a little rough, and Xiaoxing Chen doesn't recognize it. They talk for a bit, and Xu Yang realizes that Xiaoxing Chen doesn't know it's him, so he decides to stick around. Ah Qing watches the whole thing, and it's terrifying how quickly this guy could swap from a menacing, evil look to one of appreciation. As long as she can keep convincing Xu Yang that she's blind, then he has no reason to see her as a threat. But if he finds her out, he's definitely gonna kill her. And Xu Yang tests her. He has a huge sweet tooth and has a bunch of candy on him. He offers one to Ah Qing, but he throws it at her. Wei Wuxian can feel the tension in her body, but she's a seasoned pro, okay? She doesn't react until the hard candy bounces off of her. Then again, Xu Yang draws his sword before calling Ah Qing over. She walks towards him without any acknowledgement of the weapon, and Xu Yang only withdraws it within a centimeter of cutting her. But don't worry, our Ah Qing is smart. She tests him back. When Xiaoxing Chen goes on a night hunt, Ah Qing calls it hunting. But getting Xu Yang to correct her on the differences, she confirms that he is a cultivator too. Ah Qing brings that information to Xiaoxing Chen. The guy hid his profession and is therefore suspicious and dangerous, but Xiaoxing Chen refuses to abandon him. He's sure that the guy will just leave on his own once he's recovered. Meanwhile, Xu Yang is becoming obsessed with Xiaoxing Chen. Xiaoxing Chen is nursing him back to health, and he never asked for his name or how he ended up so injured to begin with. Xu Yang, no doubt, came up with some lies, but Xiaoxing Chen doesn't need them. He just wants to help people. He makes more time for hanging around Xiaoxing Chen by volunteering to fix the roof in the mortuary with him. Oh, and before I forget, Zhu Yang has been carefully avoiding Xiaoxing Chen with his left hand because Zhu Yang is missing a pinky. He doesn't want to let any identifying information loose. Around a month later, Zhu Yang has mostly recovered, and Xiaoxing Chen invites him on a night hunt. This is where things really start getting dark. This is Zhu Yang's revenge. He's been poisoning the villagers with corpse poison, cutting out their tongues and sending them towards Xiaoxing Chen. The corpse poison makes them smell like corpses, and with no tongues, they sound like corpses. To a blind man, they appear to be typical foes, but they're not. Sure, some are too far gone, but a lot of them look like they could still be cured. Ching secretly witnesses it, not fully understanding what's going on at the time, but Wei Wuxian understands everything. A lot of these people are reaching out for Xiaoxing Chen to help them, but he cuts them down. Zhu Yang just stands back and watches Xiaoxing Chen cutting down the innocent, knowing that it would kill the man to know what he's doing. Brutal, right? Well, let's take a little breather. The next memory Ching shares is of a quiet night between the three of them. At this point, Ching has gotten more comfortable with Zhu Yang. Sure, he's creepy, and sometimes he looks downright evil, but he hasn't done anything to harm her or Xiaoxing Chen that she knows of. She really just thought he was helping Xiaoxing Chen night hunt when she spied on them. Xiaoxing Chen self-reports as not a very good storyteller, but Ching whines until he relents. He talks about Baoshan Sanren, how the only rule for leaving the mountain was never coming back. The immortal wanted to make sure the problems of the outside world never disturbed her mountain. The first student to descend was a guy named Yanling Daoren. He was righteous and beloved by the common folk, but then something happened to him and he ended up becoming an evil warlord and was cut down. The second student to descend was Wei Wuxian's mother, Kangxi Sanren. She was also very talented, but chose to live a quiet life and married a servant from the Jiang clan. She was killed during an unfortunate night hunt. Wei Wuxian gives some commentary here because he's glad Xiaoxing Chen never mentioned her son became the Yiling patriarch. Ching would have had some things to say. The third student to descend was Xiaoxing Chen himself. Next, Zhu Yang shares a story from his childhood. He was a little kid growing up on the streets. One day, he got pulled into petty drama. A restaurant owner called him over one day and said that if he delivered a letter for him, then the restaurant owner would give him a whole plate of dessert. Zhu Yang agreed and ran to deliver the letter.
The mighty influence of a sweet tooth.
A burly man took his delivery, read it, and then beat him. Turns out, the restaurant owner and this guy had beef. Not that Zhu Yang ever knew what about. The burly man ended up dragging Zhu Yang back to the restaurant, but the owner had already left. Enraged, the man wrecked the shop, flipping tables and shit. Zhu Yang waited around for the restaurant owner to come back. He still wanted his dessert, but when the owner returned, all he did was beat Zhu Yang for the state of his restaurant.
His story from here will be shared with this podcast's audience, but not to the story characters yet. Host, please continue.
So, there was a bit more to that last beating. The restaurant owner had obviously been found out and beaten by the burly man too. He wanted nothing to do with little Zhu Yang. He hopped on an ox cart and started driving away. Zhu Yang chased after him, even managed to get ahead and block the ox cart. But the man still didn't listen to him. Instead, he used the ox whip to strike Zhu Yang to the ground and continued on his way. The cart ran over his hand, breaking the bones and tearing one finger off completely. Ugh, I hate that, I swear. Ugh. Finger trauma wigs me out more than most other things. The man on the cart was part of the Chang clan. This was Zhu Yang's villain origin story.
Resuming the canonical plot progression now.
Ching didn't like the story. The part that she heard, anyway. It was kind of a bummer. The two of them bicker about sweets before Xiaoxing Chen breaks them up. They both like candy, so Xiaoxing Chen starts leaving a piece of candy on each of their pillows every morning. A couple of years go by with the three of them cohabitating together at the mortuary. One day, Ching is wandering the markets when she bumps into a cultivator in black robes. This, Wei Wuxian knows, is Song Lan. He's nice to her and directs her to a less crowded part of the street. Ching is going to leave it at that when she overhears him asking the vendors if they had seen a blind cultivator in white recently. Ching goes back to him, asks some more follow-up questions, and confirms that she knows who he's looking for. She leads him back to the mortuary, and Song Lan is getting more and more visibly nervous. They find Xiaoxing Chen and Xu Weiyang together. Song Lan holds Ah Ching back and they stay hidden for a bit. Song Lan clearly recognizes Xu Weiyang. He questions Ah Ching for information and then follows after Xu Weiyang when he leaves. Ah Ching sneaks after him and spies on the confrontation. Song Lan stepped out from behind a tree. His long sword was already drawn and brandished, and the tip pointing at the ground. Xu Weiyang pretended to be shocked. Oh my, if it isn't Song Daoshang. What a rare guest. Here to bum a meal? Song Lan raised his sword and lunged. Xu Weiyang shook Jiang Zai out of his sleeves with a shing to block the attack. He backed up a few steps to safety and spat. Stinking cultivator. The one time I felt like heading out on a grocery run and you just had to fucking kill the mood. Song Lan was utterly mad with fury, each of his moves aiming to end Xu Weiyang's life. What demonic tricks are you playing? He bellowed, the tenor deep and words harsh. What are you planning? Getting close to Xiaoxing Chen. I was wondering why Song Daoshan held back from delivering a fatal blow. So it was to ask about that? Xu Weiyang laughed. Speak, Song Lan shouted angrily, as if scum like you would be so kind as to help him with his night hunts. The chi from his next swing only narrowly missed Xu Weiyang's face, leaving a gash across his cheek, but he wasn't the least bit alarmed. I'm shocked that Song Daoshan knows me so well. One of them practiced the Taoist orthodox way, while the other was a practitioner of rogue techniques, honed through criminal acts. Song Lan was obviously more skilled at swordplay. With a thrust, he pierced right through Xu Weiyang's arm. Speak. He was desperate to know the truth of this unsettling situation, or he would surely have aimed his sword at Xu Weiyang's neck instead. Despite being stabbed, Xu Weiyang's expression remained unchanged. You really want to know? It's just that, well, I worry you'll go crazy if I tell you. Some things are best left without gory details. Song Lan snapped coldly. Xu Weiyang, my patience for you is limited. Oh, let me tell you something even more amazing. I discovered that if you take someone poisoned by corpse toxin, then cut out their tongue to make them unable to speak, Shuanghua can't tell the difference between those who are just poisoned and the real walking dead. Song Lan's hands and sword began to tremble as he heard this mercilessly detailed explanation. You swine! You inhumane swine! Song Daoshan. You know, sometimes I really pity you cultured gentlemen when it comes to cussing. It's always the same words and nothing new at all. Completely toothless. I haven't used those two flaccid words since I was 7. Beside himself with anger, Song Lan attacked again, now finally aiming for his throat. You took advantage of his blindness. Woe upon him, beset by your lies. His thrust was both fast and brutal. Xu Weiyang barely managed to dodge, though his shoulder was still impaled once more. His brows didn't even twitch, as if he was senseless to pain. Bringing up the blindness, eh? Song Daoshan, don't forget. For whom did he dig out those eyes of his, At this, Song Lan's expressions and movements both froze. Xu Weiyang continued on. And what leg do you have to stand on, criticizing me? Gonna claim to be his friend? Do you really still have the nerve to call yourself Xiaoxing Chen's friend? Song Daoshan, need I remind you what you told him after I massacred Bai Shui Temple? He was worried about you. He wanted to come help you. But how did you greet him? What did you say to him? Song Lan was devastated. At the time, Xu Weiyang cut him off and shut him up. At the time, you were in the throes of lamentation, in pain, grieving, or just lacking any other targets. To be fair, I did slaughter your temple because of him. You had every reason to take it out on him, but that's exactly what I wanted. Every single word struck home. Song Lan is so unsettled that Xu Weiyang manages to get the jump on him, throwing corpse poison into his face. When Song Lan tries to cough it out, Xu Weiyang is ready with his sword and jams it into his mouth, cutting out his tongue. It's so brutal, I know. But don't worry, it gets worse. Because then, Xiaoxing Chen wanders up there. His sword had detected resentment, so he came to investigate. He calls out for Xu Weiyang when he gets there. He was worried because they hadn't had to deal with wandering corpses in this area for a long time, but it's only one it seems. Xiao Chen thrusts his sword through Song Lan's chest in one motion. It's horrible. Qing can see the heartbreaking expression on Song Lan's face as he dies. All he would have to do is present his sword, and Xiao Chen would be able to tell that it was really him. But how could he possibly do that to Xiao Chen? How could he reveal that Shu Yang had been using him to kill so many people? Song Lan can't, and he dies. After Xiao Chen and Shu Yang leave together, Qing comes out. She closes Song Lan's eyes and cries a lot. The guy she had been living with for years was way worse than she thought. She prays for forgiveness, and then she prays for strength. When she finally makes her way back, she's still crying. She plays it off, saying that she ran into some bullies at the market. She needs to get herself and Xiao Chen away from this crazy person. She begs him to go to the market with her, but it's nighttime. The market is closed, so she settles for the promise of going first thing the next morning.
The next morning,
Shu Yang ends up leaving the mortuary first. Instead of going to the market like she had been saying, Qing locks the door and starts dumping everything to Xiao Chen. Well, I guess not quite everything. She tells him that she found out the guy they've been living with is named Shu Yang, and that he is a murderer. She lies and says that she saw him murder some unknown woman. She heard and saw everything the day before, but cannot bring herself to be the one to tell him about Song Lan. She confirms that Shu Yang only has 9 fingers as proof of his identity, and she comes clean about being able to see. If her secret has to be revealed to convince him that they need to get away from Shu Yang as quickly as possible, then that's what she'll do. This is a lot for Xiao Chen to take in. His eye sockets tend to bleed when he's extra emotional or stressed, and oh boy, he's bleeding all over the place right now. Qing's only motivation here is getting herself and Xiao Chen out, but Wei Wuxian knows that Xiao Chen won't be able to leave without confronting Shu Yang. And then Shu Yang comes back. They hear him on the other side of the door. He's wondering why the door's locked, and why haven't they left for the market? Qing makes some excuses about her trying her clothes on, but Shu Yang doesn't really believe her. So she eggs him on instead, and right as he kicks the door down, Xiao Chen attacks. He yells for Qing to run, and she does. Kind of. She beelines it for her favorite hiding spot for eavesdropping and watches the confrontation. This is where Shu Yang tells the rest of his finger story. He explains his feelings on the matter. It was his finger. The 50 lives he took at the Chang estate wouldn't make up for his finger. Even 50 more wouldn't have been enough. And then he spills his revenge. Xiao Chen had him arrested. What Shu Yang did to Song Lan wouldn't cover it. He tells Xiao Chen about all the innocent people he slaughtered because of the corpse poison. And Qing can see how devastating this information is. And then Shu Yang delivers the final blow. He calls in Song Lan. He had turned him into a fierce corpse puppet. Shu Yang reintroduces them like, "Don't you remember cutting down that wandering corpse yesterday? Well, here he is again."
Warning for self-inflicted death.
Xiao Chen is able to confirm Song Lan's sword, and oh my god, you guys, this completely breaks him. Wei Wuxian is watching and can honestly relate. To want so desperately to help people, to protect people, only to find out that you've killed somebody you love with your own hands? Words cannot describe how much it hurts. Shu Yang is just cackling in the corner, as Xiao Chen is reduced to a shaking, begging mess. And then he watches as Xiao Chen takes up his sword, brings it to his own neck, and cuts. Xiao Chen is dead. Not only that, but Xiao Chen was so devastated that his soul shattered, removing all possibility of resurrection or even reincarnation. But Shu Yang won't discover that for hours. He thinks he can bring Xiao Chen back as a fierce corpse, just like he did to Song Lan. Then they can continue living as they had, with the bonus of Shu Yang having total control. But after hours and hours and hours of Xiao Chen's body sitting in an array and nothing happening, Shu Yang starts to worry. He finally discovers the shattered state of Xiao Chen's soul and starts to lose it. Okay, so this isn't canon, but Shu Yang totally fell in love with Xiao Chen. In his own twisted way. And all of this is super fucked and beyond toxic, but it's just so tragic. Especially because we know for the next, 8 years, Zhuge Yang has been maintaining his corpse and trying to put his soul back together. He even came up with this plot to capture the Yiling patriarch and can still do a picture-perfect impersonation of Xiao Xingchen. Maybe in another life, Xiao Xingchen decided to descend the mountain earlier, and then he could have stopped an ox cart from running over a child's hand.
This system asks host to please refrain from writing fan fiction during her plot recap.
Anyways, there's still a bit more memory for Qing to share. She stayed in her hiding spot for a really long time. When the coast was definitely clear, she made a run for it. She makes it out of Yi City and spends a good amount of time traveling. She'd made her way from town to town as quickly as possible, and in each town she asked everyone she passed if they had any way to contact any of the major sects. She knows she'll need their help if she wants to avenge Xiao Xingchen. She makes it all the way to Yueyang City before Zhuge Yang catches up to her. He ambushes her outside the town when she's cleaning up at a river. Ugh, it's brutal. He confronts her about not being blind, and then is like, "Hey, let me fix that for you," and throws poison in her eyes. Her world goes dark, and Wei Wuxian can feel how much it burns. And then he feels cold steel in his mouth, followed by horrible agony, and then... Thank God for the Jiang Clarity Bell. Wei Wuxian wakes up on the floor. It must have taken him a while to come back to himself, because all the kids are gathered around and fretting. When Wei Wuxian can finally sit up, he looks at Qing's ghost. This brave girl had stayed here, even though she was terrified of Zhuge Yang. She used her bamboo cane to guide as many people away as she could, just waiting for someone strong enough to help. Well, Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji wouldn't disappoint. The kids want to know what empathy showed him, but there's not enough time. He tells them to stay put and goes to join Lan Wangji. The battlefield is similar to how he left it. Wen Ning still has Song Lan pinned down. Wei Wuxian can finally take the nails out of his temples. They're thinner than the ones he found in Wen Ning. Song Lan collapses immediately. He won't be an issue anymore. Lan Wangji and Zhuge Yang are battling in the fog. Lan Wangji is slowly gaining ground, but Zhuge Yang still has the home court advantage. Zhuge Yang is obsessed with getting Xiao Xingchen's sword back. Wei Wuxian starts egging him on. If he can get Zhuge Yang to respond to him, then Lan Wangji can track him in the fog. And then Qing starts helping too. She taps her pole, and Lan Wangji knows exactly where to aim. He gets a couple strikes in before Zhuge Yang retaliates. He throws a talisman at Qing, and she screams as she's forcefully dissipated. Lan Wangji doesn't waste a second. He stabs Zhuge Yang through the chest. A fatal blow. Wei Wuxian acts then too, throwing out a spirit pouch to catch Qing's fractured spirit. Zhuge Yang is clearly defeated, but he's reaching out to Lan Wangji demanding he give Shuanghua back to him. Lan Wangji cuts his arm off. Just then, the gravedigger decides to show up again, snatches Zhuge Yang's body and transport talismans away. The battle is over, and the fog is clearing. Okay, wow, so much has happened. Time for a quick check-in. While Wei Wuxian was becoming apparent and then wrapped up in empathy, Lan Wangji was having an entirely separate adventure. When they first separated, Lan Wangji was battling the gravedigger, and he was for a while. But then a giant crowd of corpses got in the way, and he lost the gravedigger. That was the horde of 300 that Zhuge Yang was bragging about. Then, Lan Wangji started dealing with the corpses, but it wasn't all a waste of time, because he managed to find their good buddy's other arm. Did y'all forget why we came here in the first place? Me too. So, Lan Wangji gets the arm tucked away in a ceiling pouch, and then made it back just in time to bail Wei Wuxian out. And we just watched the rest. Zhuge Yang and the gravedigger obviously have some sort of connection, and Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian agreed that it was likely the Yin Tiger tally. The Jin clan had claimed it was no longer an issue after Zhuge Yang's trial, but the gravedigger took Zhuge Yang's body because he probably had it on him. How else could he have been controlling so many corpses? And, now that the tally is gone, the atmosphere around Yi City has cleared considerably. The fog is lifting quickly. One thing of note is that Song Lan had left the battlefield, but judging by Wen Ning's calm demeanor, Song Lan likely regained his senses and wandered off. And Wei Wuxian's pretty sure where they can find him. And bingo, right where they thought. Song Lan is standing silently, mournfully over Xiao Xingchen's coffin. All the juniors are also there, frightened and huddled in a corner, but when Lan Wenzhi and Wei Wuxian show up and seem completely unthreatened, they loosen up a bit. They give Songlan Shuanghua, as well as the spirit pouches with both Xiaoxing Chen and Qing's souls. They ask what he's going to do, and Songlan writes his response in the dirt. He's going to cremate Xiaoxing Chen's body and nurture the souls, so that maybe, after decades or even centuries, the souls can reincarnate. In the meantime, Songlan will travel and help people just as Xiaoxing Chen did. And one day, when he's finally able to see his friend again, Songlan will tell him that it wasn't his fault. Wei Wuxian, Lan Wenzhi, and the juniors take one path out of the city, and Songlan takes another. And that's the end of the Yi City arc. A bundle of joy, wasn't it? Just makes you feel so good, and definitely not like an endless void of despair is brutally beating you with a stick. And there are like 4 other ways to go through all of that again. Woohoo for all of the Modao adaptations! Anyways, Wei Wuxian describes everything that he saw during empathy on the road. All the juniors were extremely moved. Ouyang Zijian starts crying and promises to honor Qing and her sacrifices. This kid is a hopeless romantic. When they reach the next town, the kids start trying to burn paper money for her, but they're doing it in front of somebody's house, which is considered bad luck. This is a moment here. Wei Wuxian tries to stop them, like, there's no point. It's not like the dead will even receive the money. And Jin Ling's like, how would you even know? It's not like you've died. And if you had, I'd bet nobody burned paper money for you. Jin Ling is Jiang Cheng's nephew, all right. He knows just how to sucker punch Wei Wuxian without even knowing. Wei Wuxian slinks back to Lan Wenzhi and is like, it's not true, right? Lan Zhan burned paper money for me. And Lan Wenzhi just looks away. There's actually an animated short of this interaction. It's really cute. In that, we get to see that Lan Wenzhi never burned money because he held out hope that Wei Wuxian was never really dead. Okay, so it's been a while since we did a good, old-fashioned world lore info dump. Let's talk about the Chief Cultivator. The position is fairly new, only being established around 5 years before Wei Wuxian was resurrected. Though the role was built to be passed along in due time, the cultivation world has only had one chief cultivator so far, and that's the person who pitched it in the first place, Jingguan Yao. The goal was to have one person, agreed on by all the major sects, who could centralize intersect problems. This would hopefully minimize the risk of another Sunshot campaign. And Jingguan Yao had been doing a lot in the role to help the common folk, too. Ever the philanthropist. Once he became sect leader, he allocated some of the Jin sect's plentiful funds to the construction of watchtowers all over, especially in poor areas with no major sects nearby. The watchtowers were able to report incidents to capable cultivators to handle way faster, and the project was a huge success. But even still, they couldn't cover everything. Yi City is a good example. The territory isn't claimed by any of the major sects, and there was no watchtower in the area. Maybe if there was, someone could have freed Qing and Xiaoxing Chen's souls much earlier. But good news, there has been talk of expanding the operation by constructing another round of watchtowers. Okay, back to the boys. Lan Wenzhi got lodgings at an inn for everyone. They get the kids some dinner, which they eat in the public area, and Lan Wenzhi and Wei Wuxian go up to their room for a drink. Well, Wei Wuxian wants to drink, and Lan Wenzhi surprises him by pouring himself one too. It's time for the second drunk scene. Okay, this one has a lot of setup, but the payoff is so good. It takes 8 counts for Lan Wenzhi to pass out. Wei Wuxian is fully planning on messing with the guy some more, but of course, nothing is ever that easy. Someone is tossing pebbles at the window. Well, more like dropping pebbles on the window. Wen Ning is hanging upside down outside. He's finally regained his senses enough to have a conversation. Wei Wuxian tucks Lan Wenzhi in and whispers that he'll be back soon, and then he drops down into the alley to talk to Wen Ning. We get more information on where he's been. Wen Ning recalls being left alone for a really long time. Someone came to check on him periodically, but he doesn't know who it was. They were the ones putting the nails in his head, so it was probably Zhuge Yang. Everything got super fuzzy, and then he was outside again. Wen Ning doesn't know how he got out, but he remembers hearing Wei Wuxian's voice and followed on instinct. That's how we ended up at Mo Manor. Then they talk about how much has changed since they could last talk like this. Wei Wuxian is going to complain about all the new rules Gusu Lan has implemented before Wen Ning jumps right into the heavy. Everyone they lived with at the burial mounds was dead. It sucks, and it's sad, but they all knew that it would eventually happen. They wouldn't have been living at the burial mounds to begin with if society had a place for them. Wen Ning also asks if it was really Jiang Cheng who killed Wei Wuxian, and Wei Wuxian shoots that down once and for all. Jiang Cheng did not kill him. It was backlash from everything. Quote, "No one can walk along a single plank bridge their entire life and never fall. It can't be helped." Poor Wen Ning hasn't heard any good news at all lately. Just then, another distraction pops up. From the streets outside the inn, Wei Wuxian can hear the argument the juniors are having in the restaurant. They had been discussing Yi City and demonic cultivation. They had seen Xue Yang and how he used evil techniques. Xue Yang and his evil ways were exactly what they had been taught to fear growing up. I imagine they all had, anti-demonic cultivation lectures like we'd have say no to drug talks in school. But instead of pictures of smoke-damaged lungs, they learned about shattered souls. But then they also saw Senior Mo using those techniques, and he wasn't being evil. He was actually helping them. And he had the approval of Han Guanjun. And Han Guanjun was as upright as you could get. He wouldn't associate with evil. So some of the juniors, mostly Lan Zijue, are having a crisis of faith here. Maybe some people following behind the Yiling Patriarch weren't so bad. They're thinking, yeah, maybe a 5 milligram edible before bed can be relaxing and won't kill you. Jin Ling is on the opposite side. Demonic cultivation killed his parents. His whole life, all he's known is that the evil path is evil. That's it. There's no room for nuance there. Lan Jingyi and Ouyang Zizhen are trying to mediate, but it's hard. Especially when Jin Ling brings up his parents. It's hard to argue with that. Wen Ning, who is still listening outside, feels guilty and sad about what happened to Jin Zixuan all over again. Eventually, they all settle back down, and Lan Zijue even apologizes to Jin Ling for being insensitive. But all these distractions have gone on long enough for Lan Wenji to wake up and enter the drunk stage. He comes flying down from the window to kick Wen Ning, poor guy. Wen Ning is so sweet. He thinks that Lan Wenji must really hate him and tries to apologize, but Lan Wenji is drunk and really petty and possessive and childish right now, and he responds by just covering his ears. Wen Ning's like, "What do I do?" And Wei Wuxian's just laughing in the corner. He tells Wen Ning that it's fine, Lan Wenji's just drunk, he'll handle it, so Wen Ning should go and hide some more. Lan Wenji, with his ears still covered, is nodding along. So now Wei Wuxian is alone with Zhang Guangji again. Wei Wuxian asks if he can see his forehead ribbon. The Lan forehead ribbon is a very iconic part of the Lan uniform. It was a physical representation of their discipline, and only the person, their parents, and their fated person were allowed to touch it. Now, Wei Wuxian doesn't know any of that. He just knows that it's a special ribbon that all the Lans wear. And he knows that one time, in their youth, Wei Wuxian touched Lan Wenji's ribbon and he got super mad at him back then.
Pinboard updated.
So he asks if he can see it. To him, getting Lan Wenji drunk is probably the only time he'll be able to view the ribbon up close. And Lan Wenji actually does take off his ribbon and hand it to him. Wei Wuxian fiddles with it a bit, but there's no spells on it or anything. As far as he can tell, it's just an ordinary, high-quality ribbon. He's going to hand it back when Lan Wenji starts using it to tie Wei Wuxian's hands together. He loops it around his wrists a few times before tying it in a dead knot, and then another, and then another, and then there's a string of 8 dead knots. And this whole time, Wei Wuxian's just watching what the fuck? Am I being captured right now? And Lan Wenji looks so proud of himself. He's amusing himself by moving the ribbon up and down and watching Wei Wuxian's bound hands follow. Eventually, Wei Wuxian's like, okay, that's enough, untie me? But Lan Wenji ignores him. Wei Wuxian's like, aren't you embarrassed? What if someone else sees us? And Lan Wenji, in his head, is like, that's a great idea. Other people need to see this. So he starts dragging Wei Wuxian into the inn where the juniors are having dinner. The juniors were still eating, drinking, and having a swell time. Although there had been a minor disagreement earlier, young people were good at quickly forgetting such things, and they were currently in the merry throes of drinking games. A few of the braver Lan Clan juniors wanted to sneak drinks, so someone had been watching the stairs to the second floor to prevent their plot being discovered by Lan Wenji. None of them could have imagined Lan Wangji would suddenly drag Wei Wuxian through the front doors, which were left unguarded. When they twisted their heads to see, every single one of them looked stunned. Lan Jingyi threw himself onto the table to hide the wine cups. He toppled several plates and bowls in the process, rendering the concealment completely ineffective and making the objects all the more conspicuous instead. Lan Sizhui stood up. Han Guanjun? Why are you entering through here again? Wei Wuxian laughed. Haha, your Han Guanjun is feeling a bit warm, so we went out for a breath of fresh air. We thought we'd ambush you guys on a whim, see? We caught you sneaking drinks. He prayed inwardly. Please let Lan Zhan drag me right upstairs. Please don't say anything or do anything unnecessary. As long as he maintained that icy cold facade and said not a word, no one would know there was something wrong with him. He was just thinking this when Lan Wangji dragged him right to the table where the juniors sat. Lan Sizhui was greatly shocked. Han Guanjun, your forehead ribbon. He hadn't finished the sentence when his eyes fell on Wei Wuxian's wrists, with Han Guanjun's forehead ribbon binding them. As though miffed that not enough people had noticed, Lan Wangji raised the ribbon high, lifting Wei Wuxian's arms to show everyone present. A chicken wing fell from Lan Jingyi's mouth. It landed in his bowl, splashing sauce everywhere and staining his robes. Only one thought filled Wei Wuxian's head. Lan Wangji will have lost all face once he sobers up. Wei Wuxian tries to save some face and tells the juniors that this is some advanced ghost-catching technique that Lan Wangji wanted to show them. But the juniors immediately know that it's bullshit, especially the Lans, who have their own ribbons. Lan Jingyi starts to call him out, but Lan Sizhui shoves the chicken wing back in his mouth and covers for them. And then Lan Wangji drags him back upstairs. Lan Wangji throws him onto the bed and then goes about shutting the door, locking it, and then shoving a table against it as a barricade. When Wei Wuxian fell on the bed, he bonked his head, so he starts whining about the rough treatment. Lan Wangji comes over then and starts petting his head like an apology. Wei Wuxian asks to be untied again, but Lan Wangji covers his mouth. Drunk Wangji won't hear anything he doesn't want to hear. Wei Wuxian licks his hand in retaliation, and Lan Wangji pulls away like he's been burned. This prompts Lan Wangji to start running around the room, and Wei Wuxian gets up and chases him. This has started to be a bit fun. It's like they're playing tag, or dancing with their hands tied. Wei Wuxian really has fun with it, giggling and yelling taunts as he chases Lan Wangji around. At one point, he threatens to lick Lan Wangji again if he catches him, and Lan Wangji immediately stops running, turns around, and slams into Wei Wuxian. He's been caught! Wei Wuxian puts his wrists behind Lan Wangji's head like they're slow dancing in middle school. So, Wei Wuxian licks his arm. Lan Wangji immediately recoils again and runs away. He wants to play again, so Wei Wuxian indulges him, but the game is much shorter this time because Lan Wangji keeps running right towards him. He's caught up again, and they're back in the same position. Wei Wuxian licks his hand again. He tells him that they don't have to play a game. If Lan Wangji wants him to lick him, then he'll lick him. God, sorry, this is such a silly scene. I love it. You could say that Wei Wuxian is a mess, but a mess that Lan Wangji wanted. He could spend forever with his hands in his pockets, pictures of his face in an invisible locket. As a great poet once said. Wei Wuxian licks Lan Wangji's hand and arm some more. The book makes it sound sexier than I do, I think. Eventually, Wei Wuxian starts trying to mess with Lan Wangji the way he wanted to in the first place. He calls him nicknames and asks him questions. He asks if Lan Wangji burned paper money for him. He doesn't answer. Wei Wuxian kisses his chest. He asks how Lan Wangji recognized him in Mo Xuanyu's body. He doesn't answer. Wei Wuxian lets the intrusive thoughts in and plants a quick kiss on Lan Wangji's lips. It's all very, I'd kiss you as the lights went out, swaying as the room burned down, I'd hold you as the water rushes in. Okay, I'll stop. Lan Wangji looks like he wants to stop too. Well, he looks like he might answer now, but then he escapes from Wei Wuxian and then slams his own forehead, choosing to knock himself out rather than answer. Great. At least he's not making Wei Wuxian go to bed early, although he never untied him, so Wei Wuxian has to bite at the knots until they loosen. And then he finishes the rest of the wine by himself. He vows that he shouldn't let Lan Wangji drink anymore. He was gonna ruin the perfect, untouchable reputation of the great Han Guanjun if he kept acting like this. And Wei Wuxian couldn't let that happen. Wei Wuxian feels a little bad for stealing a kiss from a very inebriated Lan Wangji and decides to sleep on the floor. Lan Wangji wakes him up at Mao time, sober now. Wei Wuxian's wrists have some chafing and welts, so Lan Wenzhi gets some medicinal salve. Wei Wuxian complains about the night before, but Lan Wenzhi seems sure that he only suffered the consequences of his own actions. Does Lan Wenzhi remember? I'll never tell. They gather up the kids for more travel. Lan Zichen is in Tan Prefecture right now, so the plan is to meet up there. Wei Wuxian pulls Jinling aside and gives him a little lecture about not running off on every night hunt he hears of. He should at least tell his uncle if he plans to go anywhere. Jinling just husks. He's so headstrong and argues that both his uncles were already renowned cultivators at his age, even Wei Wuxian. But that was only because of the Sunshot campaign. And they only fought in that war so this new generation wouldn't have to grow up like that. These kids can enjoy being young a bit longer. And then Jinling turns the tides and lectures him back. Last night, his new friends had informed him of all the significance behind the Lan forehead ribbon, so he better not blow it. If he wants to be a cut sleeve, then that's his life. But don't go stringing along Hangwan Jun. If he's gonna do this, he better be serious. And then Jinling asks him, point blank, if he's Wei Ying. Wei Wuxian doesn't answer. It's too dangerous for that to be revealed yet. They still don't know what's going on. Revealing the Yiling patriarch right now is too risky. Zhengcheng knows, but he probably won't be spreading it around. He also doesn't have any evidence apart from the knowledge of how Wei Wuxian was growing up. His fear of dogs isn't common knowledge. It only takes them a few days to reach the Tan Prefecture, and once they arrive, there's still some time to kill before they can meet up with Lan Zichen. So time for some filler. And honestly, it's kind of nice. So the juniors want to go sightseeing. They come across the Garden of the Damsel of Annual Blossoms, and Wei Wuxian gets the pleasure of hearing a story about his own youth. So, the garden itself has fallen under disrepair lately. The gazebo is overgrown, and there are only withered branches instead of flowers, but the legend still stands. It's said that if one recites poetry in the garden under the moonlight, then the damsel will appear. The shtick depends on how good the poem is. Quote, should the poem be excellent, one shall be gifted a single annual flower, its bloom unwithering for 3 years, and with lingering fragrance. Should the poem be undesirable, or should there be an error in its recitation, the damsel will appear, hurl flowers at one's face, and vanish after. How does Wei Wuxian factor into this? Well, let me tell you. So people knew more about the fail gimmick because a lot of people failed. They get pelted so hard that a lot of people lost consciousness, and then they had no chance of trying again. But there was one exception. Back when he still studied under Ying Manzheng, Wei Wuxian once came here to see the legendary damsel. Night after night, he'd come and read just the worst poems he could find. He'd say them wrong every time. He was trying to provoke her, and provoke her he did. He got pelted and thrown out over 20 times before he was satisfied. Then he went around telling everyone about her beauty. It was said that she was so mad that she didn't emerge for a long time after that. With the exception that when Wei Wuxian tried to go back, she didn't wait for the poem. She just started pelting everyone in the garden indiscriminately. It's actually so funny. The kids are telling this story like it's some crazy lore, and Wei Wuxian's just kind of standing there. He looks at Lan Wenzhi, who's enjoying the story a lot. Lan Wenzhi is almost smiling in a way that looks like he's almost making fun of him. And then we get an inner monologue where Wei Wuxian plots revenge. He has so many stories from their youth that he's itching to tell. I'll tell them all to those kiddos and destroy the noble, incorruptible, saintly image they all have of Hangwan Jun. Just you wait.
Already going back on his word from the scene before, how fickle.
They make a little camp in the garden. Lan Wenzhi goes out on an area patrol. Wei Wuxian pulls Lan Sizhui aside at one point and asks him about the meaning behind the forehead ribbons, and Sizhui tells him. And Wei Wuxian gets to have his oh shit moment. Okay, so I mentioned during the drunk scene that there was another time Wei Wuxian touched Lan Wenzhi's ribbon, and here we get a little mini flashback to that moment. So, this is in the flashback arc, just about a year after Wei Ying got kicked out of Gusu for punching Jin Zixuan. Qishan Wen was hosting this big symposium for the sex. It took place over 7 days and was a pretty big ordeal. One of the days was dedicated to an archery competition. He and Zhengcheng were there to compete for Yunmanjiang. When they were walking to the competition, Wei Ying spotted Lan Zhan. This was the first time he'd seen him since the cloud recesses. Wei Ying tried to talk to him, but Lan Zhan frostily ignored him. So, Wei Ying used his ultimate technique, being annoying. He tells him that his ribbon is crooked. Lan Zhan checks it, feels that it's perfectly in place, and storms off. Then the competition goes by. They both do very well. And then Wei Ying tries to talk to him again. They had both been working really hard, and now Lan Zhan's ribbon really was crooked, so he tells him. Lan Zhan thinks he's just being annoying again and ignores him, but it really is coming loose. Wei Ying has this terrible habit of pulling on girls' braids to be annoying, and he kind of moves on muscle memory. When he tugs on the fluttering ends of the ribbon, it comes off Lan Zhan completely. There's one brief moment where they make eye contact, and Wei Ying can see the pure murder in Lan Zhan's eyes before the ribbon is snatched back, and Lan Zhan is swarmed with his concerned Lan Marshal siblings. Wei Ying didn't know exactly what he did, but he couldn't even apologize before Jiang Cheng dragged him off.
In flashback.
Back in the present, Wei Wuxian feels bad all over again. He's also low-key impressed with how much self-restraint Lan Wenzhi has. To have his sacred ribbon plucked off by a bastard like him, Wei Wuxian's words, and not shoot him down on the spot, Lan Zhan was very formidable. But this also makes him more confused about that second drunk scene. Lan Wenzhi handed the ribbon over on his own and then tied him up with it. What the hell did that mean?
This system assures that he will catch up eventually.
And that's the end of our little filler ep. It's time to get back to the plot. So, Wei Wuxian can admit that they'd gotten a bit lazy with their good buddy. A lot of stuff happened. All the shit in Yi City, so sue him. He'd been enjoying his time on the road with Lan Wenzhi and the juniors, and they had forgotten to play Rest for 2 days. Lan Wenzhi left his stuff at the camp when he went on patrol, including all the spirit pouches. They had been keeping each part sealed separately, but the parts had managed to free themselves and combined, and now there was a headless zombie stumbling around their camp. Wei Wuxian gets the situation with the juniors under control as quickly as possible. The secret is to not panic. Their good buddy is still missing his head, and so can't see or hear them. But he can feel any disturbances they create by moving too fast, and he can sense heat. Wei Wuxian instructs them to put out the campfire and spread out. They have to be careful not to let him catch any of them. He's searching pretty desperately for his head. Wei Wuxian theorizes that if he catches any of them, he'll rip their heads off to try on. They kite the guy around until reinforcements can arrive. And arrive they do. Lan Wenzhi comes back with Lan Zichen. Just real quick, for anyone trying to guess who the zombie is before the reveal, kudos to you. You are more powerful than I. Also, this is your last chance to guess. Here are your final hints. He moves in a way that suggests he might have had a temper in life. Also, the zombie is swinging his fist around, but it's not completely closed, as if he's miming something. And perhaps the biggest hint, Lan Zichen freezes completely when he sees him. It's only when Lan Wenzhi is playing his guqian and Wei Wuxian his flute that he snaps out of it. Lan Zichen's spiritual instrument is a xiao, named Liebing. If you're unfamiliar, a xiao is a woodwind instrument that is played vertically, kind of like a clarinet. Okay, I should also correct. I've been referring to Wei Wuxian's instrument as a flute, but technically he plays the dizi. In my defense, the dizi is a traditional Chinese flute, so it's not inaccurate to say flute, it's just more accurate to say dizi. We good? Cool. Moving on. Their little pop-up concert gets our headless buddy back under control, and Lan Wenzhi sends the kids to bed a little early. Lan Zichen requests to see the body. He wants to make sure, but he knows who it is. Are y'all ready for the reveal? Lan Zichen recognizes his naked, headless body. Who else could it be but his sworn brother? Okay, also, Nie Mingjue was canonically like 7 feet tall. I think that should have been pretty obvious. Not to mention he was miming very distinct saber techniques. That's what gave it away for Wei Wuxian. And now the web is starting to come together. Nie Mingjue died publicly of a qi deviation. The fact that someone stole and cut up his body like this suggests some foul play. So, who did it? Someone who could stand to gain by taking out the leader of Qinghe Nie. Going off sect politics, Lan Lingjin sect benefited the most. When Qinghe Nie was thrown into chaos, Lan Lingjin was able to fully cement themselves as the largest and most powerful sect. They even got the chief cultivator. Speaking of the chief cultivator, the shrouded gravedigger was intimately familiar with the sword techniques of the Lan clan. Wei Wuxian had been theorizing that perhaps it was a scorned former disciple, but it could also be someone close to a Lan cultivator. Like maybe, perhaps, a sworn brother. Someone from Lanling Jin with a close relationship to members of both Gusu Lang and Qinghe Nie. Oh, poor Lan Zichen. He really is very nice and trusting, and he certainly does not deserve this. Lan Zichen isn't ready to turn on his best friend, Jin Guangyao. And accepting that your best friend has so thoroughly deceived you would be hard for anyone to take. There's a symposium being hosted by Lanling Jin at Carp Tower. Lan Zichen wants to take the time to talk to Jin Guangyao before any official accusations are made public. The Grand Symposium at Carp Tower has become a bit of a tradition. It's basically a big banquet for all the cultivators from big and small sects to gather and mingle, make connections. And we really get to see Jin Guangyao in his element here. He's got the whole thing perfectly organized, and we get to see how good he is at solving problems through various interactions. He immediately comes to greet Lan Zichen, they're best friends. Lan Wenzhi, on the other hand, doesn't usually attend events like these. I mean, he's only here to investigate, but Jin Guangyao doesn't know that yet. He just sees Lan Wenzhi with his brother and starts making the proper arrangements for him. Jin Ling had been hiding at Carp Tower, but Jiang Cheng is at the symposium to represent Yugmeng Jiang. And to say that Jiang Cheng is angry at his nephew is an understatement. Not only does he keep running off and getting into trouble without telling him, but then the little rascal doesn't even have the nerve to inform him that he's still alive. Oh, I love Jiang Cheng's "make me worry and I'll kill you" brand of care. Jin Guangyao steps in and carefully mitigates the conversation so that no nephew murdering takes place. Nie Huaisang is there, and drunk too. He's flinging himself at Jin Guangyao and crying. Huaisang has been relying on Jin Guangyao a lot for solving problems that pop up while running Qinghe Nie. We don't get details, but it seems Jin Guangyao has bailed Nie Huaisang out a lot. And the problems just keep coming. We also get introduced to Jin Guangyao's wife, Qin Su. I know, right? He's got a wife, and it's not Lan Zichen. Okay, sure. Jin Guangyao had rescued Qin Su from the Wen clan during the Sunshot campaign, and she fell in love with him. She's from a prominent family and was a good political match for the then newly appointed sect head of Lanling Jin. Everything about Jin Guangyao is calculated. Everything is planned meticulously by his own hand, and he does it all with a polite smile on his face. And I know that we, the audience, as well as Wei Wuxian and Lan Wenzhi, are accusing him of murdering his sworn brother, but I don't want you guys to think he's completely heartless. MXTX made him a very complex character. Jin Guangyao is the perfect sect leader because he has to be. The world of sect politics, especially in Lanling Jin, is cutthroat. He purposely does everything in a way where no one can complain, and yet Lanling Jin still doesn't fully support their leader. We'll see it more as the book goes on, but there are hints here at the symposium. There's a great hall in Carp Tower where the walls are lined with murals. There's a bunch of them depicting Jin Guangyao and his rise to power, his victories during the Sunshot campaign, and his ascension to sect leader. Tradition states that there should be murals of other prominent members of Lanling Jin as well, but the sect leader always has the most. This isn't true for Jin Guangyao. There are, in fact, an equal amount of murals for Jin Zixuan, Jin Ling's father, and Jin Guangshan's only legitimate son. Also, remember, during the Sunshot campaign, Jin Guangyao, or Meng Yao at the time, helped the war efforts by being a spy. The murals of his great victories depict him as a trickster, someone willing to gain someone's trust to stab them in the back. Talk about backhanded. Also, Jin Guangyao and Qin Su had a son, but he died in infancy. Coincidentally, his son died at the same time Jin Guangyao was getting a lot of opposition for his plan to construct that first round of watchtowers. Anyways, I just want to make sure everyone gets a taste of that chip on his shoulder. Wei Wuxian splits off from Lan Wenzhi for a while. Lan Wenzhi will investigate the major sect circle as well as keep an eye on Jiang Cheng, and Wei Wuxian will mingle with the lower sects. Also, all the Jin sect people keep shooting him dirty looks. Mo Xuanyu was kicked out for harassing Jin Guangyao, after all. It seemed like that information was only well known amongst Jin cultivators. It makes sense. It would have been a huge scandal. They were half-brothers, after all. Wei Wuxian runs into Jin Ling being bullied by a bunch of his cousins. Wei Wuxian flicks them off with some qi and gets some more insight on his sister's kid. Jin Ling was always alone. Lan Sijue, Lan Jingyi, and Ouyang Zizhen may well be the first friends he's ever had. The snooty Jin cousins all look down on him and treat him badly for being an orphan. He can hide away from it all by spending time with "I'll break your legs" Zhongcheng, but that can also get dangerous. I love Zhongcheng, but he kind of sucks with kids. Jin Guangyao was there for him, kind of. His advice always boiled down to ignore all the insults, but that's tough for the little teenager. Jin Ling is only 15. He has fairy, I guess. Wei Wuxian vows to get this kid a better support system. Security is too tight for him to do any real investigating, so Wei Wuxian meets back up with Lan Wangji and they head to the rooms they had been provided. Wei Wuxian has a plan. He just needs privacy to put it into place. He's going to use a dark arts technique called paper cut incarnation. This allows him to project his consciousness into a little paper man. I think technically he can use any paper, but the little paper man adds a bit of cuteness to it all. To demonstrate, the first thing he does is climb up Lan Wangji and plant a little paper kiss on his cheek. But it's not all cuteness. This is a great technique for sneaking around undetected. But it's also really dangerous. Paper is fragile, and any harm done to the paper effigy will reflect onto the person controlling it. Getting ripped up could send him into an endless coma. So he has to be careful not to get caught. Paper Wei Wuxian sneaks his way into Jin Guangyao's personal residence, the Fragrance Palace. Jin Guangyao and Lan Zichen are tending to Ni Huaisang's drunk ass in the gardens outside, so the coast is clear. The place is auspiciously decorated. There's a letter on the table under a heavy paperweight. That paper Wei Wuxian doesn't have the strength to move. Just then, Qin Su stumbles in. She looks terrible. She's been crying and throwing up and is a total mess. Wei Wuxian saw her earlier and she looked fine, so something must have happened. Lucky for us, she starts rambling. Something about the letter. She must have made too much noise bumping into stuff because Jin Guangyao shows up then. She confronts him. She met with someone. She won't say who, but she trusts them. They gave her the letter, and whatever's inside has destroyed her trust in her husband and turned her into this mess. Jin Guangyao tries to sweet-talk her down, but she keeps going on about how he's been lying to her this whole time, and everything he does, including his marriage to her, was only for his own political gain. I feel like we see some real feelings come through on Jin Guangyao's side here. He seems genuinely sad to see her turn from him. He brings up that his feelings were genuine, especially at the beginning, because she never looked down on him for his origins. And then, when he found out some big secret, he just wanted to keep it from her so that she wouldn't feel the pain of it. But then she pulls out the big guns and brings up their son.
Warning for infant death.
It's strongly implied here that Jin Guangyao killed his own son. It's not completely revealed here, but I'll let y'all in on a secret and what was in the letter. Qin Su is not her father's daughter. She never knew, but she was a result of an affair between her mother and Jin Guangshan, the man whore who never stops. Jin Guangyao and Qin Su are half-siblings, and their son was incestuous. Jin Guangyao found out and he never told her. But then they had a baby, and if the baby grew up, people would know, so he got rid of it. At this point, Qin Su is beyond hysterical, so Jin Guangyao seals her meridians, rendering her immobile. He gives a diplomatic statement of her needing some rest and carries her through a mirror into a secret chamber. Wei Wuxian follows after him. This secret room is full of powerful artifacts and secret treasures. There's also a long table covered in dark, ominous stains. Perfect size for dismembering a body. Jin Guangyao lays Qin Su on the table and tells her to rest here until she's ready to tell him who sent that letter. I will say that Jin Guangyao is extremely vigilant. He senses Wei Wuxian watching him, but Wei Wuxian is hiding in a book. Ironically, the book is full of his own handwriting. He recognizes some of the pages as random notes he took while living and experimenting in the burial mounds. Jin Guangyao walks to the bookshelf, but addresses something else, something covered in seals, as what was making him feel watched. And then he leaves the room. Paper Wei Wuxian goes to investigate the wrapped object and uncovers it, revealing Nie Mingjue's head. Lan Wenzhi is sitting in the rooms Lan Lingjin provided him. Wei Wuxian's body is resting in his lap, while the man's consciousness is out investigating. Lan Wenzhi gently brushes his lips where the paper man touched. Meanwhile, on the other side of Carp Tower, Wei Wuxian is fighting a losing battle. As soon as he removed the talisman on Nie Mingjue's head, the room was flooded with tons of resentful energy. The physical body acts as a sort of shield against energy like this, but Wei Wuxian doesn't have his physical body right now. Resentment floods into him, and Wei Wuxian feels Nie Mingjue's resentful spirit pulling him in, and Wei Wuxian finds himself looking through Nie Mingjue's eyes a la empathy. It starts him at the moment Nie Mingjue killed Wen Shu, the oldest son of the Wen sect leader, Wen Rohan. This was during the Sunshot campaign. Nie Mingjue had been leading mission after mission to push the Wen clan back as much as possible, and in this particular squadron was one Meng Yao. How did Meng Yao get here, you might ask? Well, let me tell you. So, I'm pretty sure right around the time the Sunshot campaign was just getting started, Meng Yao had set out from his hometown to Lanling. He had grown up hearing stories of his powerful father from his mother. He had dreams of becoming accepted by his father, so he set out to Lanling with the pearl Jin Guanshan gave his mother as a love token. It sucks for him that Jin Guanshan was a complete deadbeat who had dozens of bastard children, and he never acknowledged any of them. And the pearl love token was just some trinket that Jin Guanshan dropped on any woman that caught his eye. And when he finally reached Carp Tower, it just so happened to be on Jin Zishuan's birthday. He was greeted by Madame Jin, who was not happy being presented with a memento of her husband's infidelity, especially on her son's birthday. Needless to say, she did not grant him an audience with Jin Guanshan that day. She actually kicked Meng Yao down the stairs at Carp Tower. But that disaster wasn't enough to stamp out Meng Yao's dream of having a family in the Jin sect. He decides he just needs to make a name for himself first. So he joins the war efforts under the banner of Qing He, who had been leading the front lines. And he just so happens to be on this mission where Nie Mingjue kills Wen Shu. The night after the victory, Nie Mingjue had set up camp in a cave. All of his men were enjoying food and each other's company except one. When Nie Mingjue gets closer, he can hear the men gossiping about Meng Yao, about his lowly origins, and about Jin Guanshan. Nie Mingjue doesn't stand for gossip. He's all about merit, and he had a good eye for everyone under his command. He saw that Meng Yao had good strategy on the battlefield. So, after reprimanding the gossips, he goes to sit with Meng Yao, and that's how these two first met. Over the next few months, Nie Mingjue and Meng Yao grow closer. Meng Yao had become an important deputy under Nie Mingjue. Nie Mingjue was already close to Lan Zichen at the time. These two were equally as infamous during the Sunshot campaign from opposite sides of the coin. Nie Mingjue was known for ruthlessly cutting down every Wen cultivator and Wen ally in his path. Lan Zichen was known for traveling war-torn towns and providing aid to the injured and all those common people being affected by the battles. Nie Mingjue was going to meet up with Lan Zichen when he finds him talking with Meng Yao. Meng Yao and Lan Zichen also already knew each other. Meng Yao is telling Lan Zichen about how he admires Nie Mingjue and he's grateful for the opportunity to rise the ranks under him, but his dream is still to find a place in Lanling Jin. Lan Zichen's there like, Nie Mingjue will understand, and even if he doesn't, I'll help you convince him. That's when Nie Mingjue steps in. I'll give you the Nie Mingjue mindset here. He didn't promote Meng Yao because he felt bad that people were mean to him. He also didn't promote him as a way to hoard his strategic abilities either. Nie Mingjue promoted him because he worked hard. If Meng Yao wants to try his luck in Lanling, then Nie Mingjue will write him a letter of recommendation. These three aren't sworn brothers yet, but they chat like old friends for the rest of the afternoon. It's kind of interesting here. We hear little snippets of information about what Lan Wenzhi and Wei Wuxian are doing. At this time, and I promise we'll get to see this all from Wei Wuxian's perspective in the flashback arc later, Wei Wuxian is still part of Yunmanjiang. He's not the Yiling Patriarch yet, but he has been winning battles against the Wens with his demonic cultivation. And there are all these rumors going around about Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji getting into huge arguments every time they see each other. That's kind of true, but we'll get into the details later. Anyways, Nie Mingjue doesn't see Meng Yao for a while, until he goes to visit Carp Tower. He runs into Meng Yao standing over a pile of dead Wen and Jin cultivators, including a Jin commander. Nie Mingjue does not take this well, but Meng Yao tries to defend himself anyways. Meng Yao claims that he didn't mean to, it's just that these people had been harassing him his entire time in Lanling, and the commander was the worst. He stole the credit for all of Meng Yao's strategies, and then they insulted his mother and Meng Yao lost control. He didn't mean to kill them, but Nie Mingjue doesn't accept it. First off, Nie Mingjue can't understand the desire for something as petty as credit. The strategy's success should be all that matters. Second, he doesn't believe for a second that this was an act of passion. He found the massacre in a secluded area, and Meng Yao had murdered them with a Wen sword using Wen sword techniques. This was premeditated. He knows firsthand how great a strategist Meng Yao is. He knows that he's interrupted a near-perfect plan to get rid of obstacles while raising his own merit. All he has to say is that the Wens invaded and that he was the only one to defeat them and survive. In the end, it's Lan Zichen that convinces him to let it all go. Nie Mingjue will give him another chance because those Jin guys sucked and probably deserve to die. But if Meng Yao pulls this shit again, he'll be meeting with the business end of Baxia. Baxia is the name of Nie Mingjue's saber. I don't think I've mentioned that before. Meng Yao seems to disappear for quite a while after that. Nie Mingjue doesn't know it yet, but this is when Meng Yao was infiltrating the Wen sect ranks as a double agent. Whoever said absence makes the heart grow fonder didn't know Nie Mingjue. Every time he even heard Meng Yao's name, he got mad. And then Nie Mingjue got captured by the Wen sect. It sucked because it had actually been going really well for a while. Nie Mingjue had been able to reclaim a number of territories from the Wens. But then something went wrong. The Wens they fought caught them off guard and countered their entire strategy. And now, Nie Mingjue and his men were all kneeling in the Scorching Sun Palace, in front of Wen Rohan's throne. Wen Rohan is an intimidating figure. He's strong and his cultivation is high, keeping his body in peak physical shape. And he's an asshole. He keeps having his aide kill Nie Mingjue's men behind him. And he's waving around a saber that Nie Mingjue's father gifted to the Wen sect back when relations were better. But Nie Mingjue is honestly paying more attention to that aide. That aide being none other than Meng Yao. Now, Nie Mingjue knows exactly who sabotaged his mission. After all, Meng Yao knew exactly how Nie Mingjue operated. He used to be his strategist. Wei Wuxian, watching everything play out through Nie Mingjue's eyes, knows that Meng Yao is just hamming it up for the bit. But he's also feeling just how furious Nie Mingjue is. And when I tell you Meng Yao is doing the bit, he's doing the bit. Meng Yao is taunting him verbally and physically. At one point, he jump kicks Nie Mingjue and steps on his chest. Nie Mingjue is so mad he starts chi deviating. Eventually, it's just Nie Mingjue left from the captured party when Rohan is tired of playing. Meng Yao suggests he send Nie Mingjue to the Wen torture camp, the Inferno Palace. When Rohan gives him the go-ahead to do as he pleases, and that's when Meng Yao kills him. When Rohan is dead, Nie Mingjue is super out of it, as Meng Yao supports him. Wei Wuxian feels beat to hell, but Nie Mingjue is getting a second wind. He confronts Meng Yao. Meng Yao has counters and arguments for all of his actions, and Wei Wuxian can see the master negotiator, Jin Guangyao, at work. But Nie Mingjue is a whole other beast. Immovable object meet unstoppable force. Meng Yao tells him that killing the Nie soldiers was the only way Meng Yao could spare Nie Mingjue's life, and Nie Mingjue responds that he will kill Meng Yao and then himself to atone. The only thing that can stop these two is our secret third thing that shows up just in time. Enter Lan Zichen. He explains that Meng Yao had never betrayed them, that this was his plan to infiltrate the Wens and assassinate Wen Rohan, and that all the plans and information on Wen movements had all been leaked through Meng Yao this whole time. And now, the Sunshot campaign is effectively over. The war is won. Lan Zichen is very pure-hearted, bless him. Really believes Meng Yao only committed all those atrocities because he absolutely had to for his cover. And so do I, honestly. But the trust and respect that Nie Mingjue had for Meng Yao is gone. Wei Wuxian's like, how the hell did this sworn brotherhood happen? Cause that still hasn't dropped yet. But I guess it's a combination of how convincing sad Lan Zichen can be and Nie Mingjue's I'ma keep an eye on you mentality. Wei Wuxian's seen how much Nie Mingjue can hover with Nie Huaisang. The next memory Wei Wuxian sees is after the war efforts have wrapped up. Zheng Guangyao has been fully recognized for his role in ending the war, and is a member of the Jin clan. They are all sworn brothers now. Wei Wuxian notes that Xue Yang is standing behind Zheng Guangyao. This must be when he was a guest disciple at the Lanling Jin sect. Nie Mingjue doesn't trust Xue Yang because he has a certain reputation, but this is before the whole Chang clan massacre and all that. And then Nie Mingjue turns around and there's Zhang Cheng and Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian, through Nie Mingjue, gets to see himself walking around, interacting with Zhang Cheng and then with Lan Wenzhi. This is still pre-Yiling Patriarch era, but the distrust of Wei Wuxian has been building and building. Honestly, a lot of people didn't like his methods, and the fact that he's been messing with demonic cultivation, but he was fighting the Wens. An enemy of an enemy is useful, but now the war was over. I'll let y'all in. Yun Menjiang has been getting a lot of backlash for keeping Wei Wuxian in their ranks this whole time, but we'll get back to that later. Nie Mingjue watches the two prides of Yunmeng walk away. Wei Ying, in the memories, says something about how much taller Nie Mingjue is than Zheng Cheng. Wei Wuxian, in empathy, gets to hear how people talked behind his back. Nie Mingjue points out that Wei Ying isn't even carrying a sword. Lan Wenzhi says that he probably forgot it.
The missing sword has been added to the pin board.
In the distance, they can hear Wei Wuxian get into an argument with Jin Zixuan. Jin Zixuan had asked him and Zheng Cheng about Jiang Yanli. Their engagement had been broken off after the punching incident in the last volume, but then Jin Zixuan caught feelings. Ugh, that boy has a lot of shit-talking to make up for, but I love watching him fight for her affections. Anyway, Wei Wuxian storms out from the conference after that, but Nie Mingjue isn't very interested in all that drama anyway. The next memory is in the Unclean Realm. The three sworn brothers are all together. Lan Zichen is playing the Guqian for Nie Mingjue to calm his qi. Okay, so in the Seven Seas translation, they call this song the purification tone of the Lan clan. But in the Untamed, and in my head, this song is called Clarity, so I'm gonna call it Clarity. Jin Guangyao can play the qin too, but just not as good as Lan Zichen. Honestly, his self-taught playing is perfectly passable anywhere other than the Gusu Lan clan, where they specialize in music, and Lan Zichen tells him as much. Lan Zichen offers to teach Jin Guangyao the song. Nie Mingjue says he shouldn't be giving out sex secrets so easily, but when did these two ever listen to him? Next, we see Nie Mingjue sneaking up on Nie Huaisang, who is neglecting his saber training as per usual. Jin Guangyao interrupts before Nie Mingjue can give his little brother a true piece of his mind. Nie Huaisang really likes Jin Guangyao. He spoils him with paints and fans, and he can save him from his brother's wrath, like he is right now. Nie Huaisang escapes and these two get down to business. Lan Zichen had gifted that qin from the last time to Qinghe Nie so that he could use it to play Clarity for Nie Mingjue on a regular basis. But the Lan sect was getting busy, and Lan Zichen, as a sect leader, had been getting a lot less time to come now. But he had taught the song to Jin Guangyao, so here he is to stand it. After being interrupted several times, Nie Mingjue's fury had mostly subsided. He looked back at the slightly tired Jin Guangyao, whose sparks amidst snow robe was dusty and travel-worn. Presumably, he had hurried here from Golden Carp Tower. After a moment's pause, Nie Mingjue said, "Have a seat." Jin Guangyao gave a slight nod and sat down as instructed. If Dage is concerned about Huaisang, a softer approach wouldn't hurt. Why be so harsh? He'd still be like this, with a saber held to his neck, Nie Mingjue said. It seems that he'll always be a good-for-nothing, even if I beat him to death. It's not that Huaisang is worthless, but just that his ambitions don't lie here. Jin Guangyao advised him. And you figured out exactly where his ambitions do lie? Ni Mingjue said. Jin Guangyao smiled. Of course. Is this not my forte? The only one I can't figure out is Dage. Knowing a person's likes and dislikes and catering to them accordingly made getting things done easier. You could accomplish your goals with half as much effort. As such, the ability to discern people's desires truly was Jin Guangyao's forte. The only person he never could seem to pry any useful information out of was Ni Mingjue. Wei Wuxian had seen this firsthand, back when Meng Yao worked under Ni Mingjue's command. The man never laid his hands on women, alcohol, or material wealth. Paintings, calligraphy, and antiques were all piles of ink and mud in his eyes. Top-grade premium tea tasted the same to him as the dregs from a roadside stall. Meng Yao had racked his brain and still failed to identify anything Ni Mingjue might have had a taste for, other than training with his saber every day and killing wen dogs. He was truly an iron bastion, with no weaknesses to exploit. Hearing him speak so self-deprecatingly, Ni Mingjue did not feel as repelled as usual. Don't encourage that disgraceful behavior of his. Jin Guangyao smiled and asked again, Dage, where is Erge's Gutian? Ni Mingjue pointed it out for him. From that point onward, Jin Guangyao would rush from Lanling to Qinghe every few days and play the purification tone to help Ni Mingjue purify his mind. He did this to the best of his ability, without a single word of complaint. The purification tone was indeed mysterious and effective. Wei Wuxian could clearly sense the resentful energy lurking within Ni Mingjue's heart being suppressed, and the conversation and interactions they had while the Guqian played were like those they shared in the peaceful past, when they had yet to fall out with one another. Perhaps being unable to get away from the reconstruction of the cloud recesses was merely an excuse on Lan Xichen's part. Perhaps he only wanted to give Ni Mingjue and Jin Guangyao opportunity to ease the tension in their relationship. Not that it's working super well. In the next scene, they're fighting again. Just verbally this time. Ni Mingjue just heard that the Jin clan set Shu Yang free after his Chang trial, and a lot of stuff bubbles up. Ni Mingjue calls him calculating and shifty and tricky again, but with a lot more yelling. And Jin Guangyao crashes out here too. Through context, we know that Jin Zixuan has died, and Jin Guanshan is still the sect leader. Jin Guangyao's position is still a bit rocky in the sect. The Jins are a den of vipers. Shu Yang's release was Jin Guanshan's decision, and Jin Guangyao had to go along with it if he wanted to stay in the running for the next sect leader. And then, Ni Mingjue kicks Jin Guangyao down the stairs at Carp Tower, just like Madame Jin did all those years ago. And then, the cherry on top, he yells after him something like, as expected of the son of a prostitute. And we know that Jin Guangyao eventually kills Ni Mingjue, but damn. Lan Zichen has to talk Ni Mingjue down again. He tells him how cruel Madame Jin has been since Jin Zixuan died, and how Jin Guanshan has been rejecting every proposal Jin Guangyao has, i.e. the watchtowers. And he points out that Jin Guangyao has never argued back with Ni Mingjue like that, and Ni Mingjue concedes to give him a bit of slack. And then, a few days later, Jin Guangyao is in the Unclean Realm to play clarity for him. Jin Guangyao does a very convincing job of apologizing to Ni Mingjue. Wei Wuxian knows he's lying through his teeth, but his performance is extremely convincing. He even promises to bring Ni Mingjue Shu Yang's head to show his sincerity. But the thing is, Ni Mingjue has been getting angrier and angrier. The sword spirit is getting fiercer. He still hasn't told Nie Huaisang, but his brother's training has been getting more and more intense. And poor Huaisang is just not built for this. He's not getting the techniques, and Nie Mingjue is losing his mind. It all culminates in Nie Mingjue gathering up every single book and fan that Nie Huaisang has collected and burning them all. And then the day comes. Ni Mingjue just happens to overhear Lan Zichen and Jin Guangyao talking about him. As part of their sworn brotherhood, Ni Mingjue made them swear to never betray each other, with the consequence being, quote, to incite universal condemnation and be executed by the way of dismemberment. God damn. Then Jin Guangyao brings up the stair incident, and Ni Mingjue just loses it. The only thing in his head is rage. How dare Jin Guangyao come to him begging for forgiveness, only to immediately turn around and bitch to Lan Zichen. The chi deviation kills him. The world is fading. He vaguely hears Nie Huaisang screaming his name. Right at the end, Nie Mingjue gets a single moment of clarity, and all he sees is Jin Guangyao's face. Even with tears in his eyes, it looks like he's bragging. Ugh, God, this scene is so crazy. It's like the scene in Death Note where L dies. Spoilers, sorry. Anyways, Wei Wuxian gets pulled out then when he hears Lan Wenzhi calling his name. He needs to get back to his body. But of course, it's not that easy. Wei Wuxian comes back into his paper man, and there's Jin Guangyao staring at him from the corner of the room like a fucking slasher villain. Jin Guangyao's blade is a soft sword, which is a special, flexible blade. It's not great for stabbing or slicing with traditional techniques, but it's fast and unpredictable. Wei Wuxian's paper man is barely able to dodge. But then he spots an unexpected boon. In Jin Guangyao's weird collection of artifacts, Wei Wuxian spots Suibian. He had no idea how Jin Guangyao got his sword, but a gift horse and all that. He jumps on the handle and the blade slides out of the sheath. Wei Wuxian is able to control it with spiritual energy to block Jin Guangyao, and Jin Guangyao is surprised enough by the move that Wei Wuxian is able to escape. At this point, he doesn't really care about stealth and just flaps his little paperman arms as fast as possible to get back to their rooms. He actually gets there as soon as Lan Wenzhi opened the door and ends up slamming into his face. Wei Wuxian gets back into his body and is like, we gotta go to the Fragrance Palace right now. Jin Guangyao has Nie Mingjue's head in a secret room. So, they run all the way back there, making as much noise as possible. They need to corner Jin Guangyao with witnesses. But Jin Guangyao guessed exactly who the paperman was when he drew Suibian and crafted a plan. They get to the Fragrance Palace with a crowd, including Jin Ling and Lan Zichen. Lan Zichen is the one who demands Jin Guangyao let them into the secret room. Let it be known that Jin Guangyao gives an Oscar-worthy performance here. He sounds so confused and lets them in. Everything looks the same. Qin Su is even still laying on the table. Jin Guangyao weaves a tale about how, as husband and wife, they share everything, even secret artifact rooms. The only difference is that, behind the curtain, instead of Nie Mingjue's head, there's one of Wen Rohan's cursed daggers. Damn, he hit it! And then, Qin Su, still in a daze, gets up and stabs herself with the dagger. Damn! Wei Wuxian has no idea how he made her do that. And then the theatrics start. My Asu, how could this happen? Erga! That's what Jin Guangyao calls Lan Zichen. Erga, why have you brought everyone here? And poor Lan Zichen looks so guilty when he tells everyone about the pieces of Nie Mingjue's body they've been collecting, and even admits that he thought the head would be in the secret room. And Jin Guangyao turns that crowd they brought with them against them. He calls out Mo Zhuanyu and exposes the time he harassed him. People are drawing their swords at this point. Lan Wenzhi has to block a couple of strikes as they are driven into a corner. Wei Wuxian spots Suibian nearby and draws it to defend himself, and they fall right into Jin Guangyao's trap. He makes this dramatic show, telling everyone how he kept the Yilin Patriarch's sword, how it had sealed himself after Wei Wuxian's death 13 years ago and no one could draw it, how, before he was kicked out of Carp Tower, Mo Zhuanyu had been caught reading about a forbidden resurrection ritual, how Mo Zhuanyu must have called on Wei Wuxian's soul to enact his revenge. Mo Zhuanyu was jealous of Qin Su because he wanted Jin Guangyao but couldn't have him, so Wei Wuxian must have done something to drive her to suicide on his behalf. I gotta note that Zheng Cheng is also in the crowd and just looks really sad at all of this. And if anyone was cruel enough to cut up Nie Mingjue's body, it must have been Wei Wuxian. Yeah, Wei Wuxian recognizes when it's time to bolt. He jumps out the window. Lan Wenzhi follows after him. Wei Wuxian tells him that he doesn't need to come. Wei Wuxian's used to being alone, and sticking together will only ruin Lan Wenzhi's reputation. But Lan Wenzhi doesn't care about any of that. The pair is eventually stopped by Jin Ling. The poor kid is crying. He asks again if he's Wei Ying, but this time he knows the answer. Seriously, this poor kid. I don't blame him. Wei Wuxian doesn't blame him. Here's this guy who's been low-key taking care of him and teaching him for weeks now. It's also the guy who killed both of his parents. He's feeling a whole lot of stuff right now. Wei Wuxian tries to approach him. Jin Ling stabs him with the sword he inherited from Jin Zixuan. Wei Wuxian notes that it's the same spot Zheng Cheng once stabbed him, and Wei Wuxian faints. Okay, so this isn't in the 7C's translation right here, but whenever I remember this scene, I remember this dialogue of Wei Wuxian being like, ugh, Back in my old body, wounds like this were nothing. Even if my guts spilled out, I would just shove them back in. Bourgeois Yu is so weak. Maybe that's in the Untamed or the Donghua or something. Honestly, that might be from fanfiction. I have no idea. Anyways, Volume 2 ends with Wei Wuxian coming back to on Lan Wangji's back. And he notes that he finally remembers when he carried Lan Wangji the same way. I know, right? What a cliffhanger. This one was really real-time arc heavy. The only flashbacks we got were through empathy, and that one ribbon scene, I guess. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure the next one is way more flashback arc heavy, so look forward to that. That Jiggy really is quite something, huh? Be honest, did you see villain Jing Guangyao coming?
There are still many secrets to be revealed.
Very ominous. Oh god, I just remembered how much the next volume qualifies as Wei Wuxian's tragic backstory. It's gonna hurt a bit. But honestly, the saddest scenes in Modao are saved for even later. This book is really sad, actually. I miss Scum Villain. Anyways, that's it for this one. I hope you liked it. Honestly, I wasn't super happy about how the Volume 1 episode went. Like, it was fine, but I feel like I relied on book quotes a bit too much. I'm much happier with this one. Okay, I need to be done. Thank you for listening, and until next time, be careful around the stairs. Bye! Oh boy, is it time I bring back post-episode unscripted rambling? Well, I'm gonna do it anyways. Ooh, how exciting! What should I talk about? Let's talk about the bunnies. So I kind of breezed over the whole bunny scene in the last volume, but the rabbits are pretty much the mascots of MDZS. Wei Wuxian gets depicted as a black bunny with a red ribbon, and Lan Wangji is a white one with a blue ribbon. Wang Xun fits the classic red-blue gay trope. And even though Lan Wangji's ribbon is technically white... Oh my god, wait, have I even mentioned Wei Wuxian's iconic red ribbon at all? I don't think so. Shit. Y'all, I've been really fucking this one up. So, Wei Wuxian usually wears his hair up in a ponytail with a red ribbon. It's his look. Except when he's at peak trauma, aka the Yiling Patriarch era. Then he wears his hair down. Me and my friends all got matching red ribbon scrunchies for Wei Ying. Wait, but back to the bunnies. There's so much official art with the Wang Xian bunnies. They are so cute. I low-key got obsessed with bunnies after I read Modao for the first time. Like, they just started popping up all over my house. Like, okay, let me look around. Yeah, there are like 12 rabbit plushies in my room right now. And that's not even counting the ones I got in the shared spaces in my house. My roomies love my decorations. Honestly, I've been really loving rereading Modao. This series is so good. I really thought this would be my absolute favorite thing for a while, and then Scum Villain punched me in the face, and here we are. It's the juniors, honestly. I love the juniors so much. I mean, I fucking adore Wang Xian too, but the juniors just hit different. Oh my god, I really love reading junior-centric fanfictions. Modao is one of those fandoms with a super immaculate fandom tag on AO3. So many masterpieces. And all of my favorite ones are junior-centric. I may or may not have even written some, including a crossover fic with Scum Villain Kids. Am I sharing too much? Probably. Oh my god, did you guys know that MDZS is actually what got AO3 to change their rules for like the first time ever? So there was this fic called Sexy Times with Wang Xian, and it was one of those collections of one-shots type. But the writer tagged everything, and I mean everything. The tags list was so fucking long, it would take forever to scroll past it, and they updated it all the time. And the author kept the status as completed, so it didn't matter if you sorted by date updated or completed works only. Sexy Times with Wang Xian would be there. And it became a bit of a meme for people too. Okay, so there was like a screenshot of all the tags on one page, and it looked like a wall. Like, you could have told me that was the Gusu Lan rules, and I would have believed you. But it was a meme to zoom in on a random spot and name the first tag you saw. You could get whatever crazy smut tag under the sun, or you could get something completely random that super did not need to be tagged, like chair or Sundays. Anyways, I think the author started getting petty at some point, and eventually AO3 stepped in, and now there's a max of 70 tags per fic. Okay, I should be done rambling. That's fine. I'll see you all next time.